Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Sakura, Hinata and Kagero? If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, so without wasting any time, let's get into the video. A young man, about 15 years old, groaned as he slowly regained consciousness. The last thing he remembered was being beaten by a mob of villagers. This was nothing new for him, unfortunately. This young man with blonde, sun-kissed hair, blue eyes and whisker marks on his cheeks was used to having to run and hide from mobs. Unfortunately, they managed to find him more often than not with the help of other villagers, as well as the occasional shinobi. Sighing softly, the boy, whose name is Naruto Uzumaki, rolled over so he was lying on his back. Tilting his head to the side, he spat out a glob of blood. "Ugh," he muttered. He could taste dirt and grass on his tongue and grumbled irritably. "Goody. I wonder how long I've been eating dirt for this time." Closing his eyes for a moment so he could collect himself, Naruto took in a breath and let it out slowly. After some time had passed, he opened his eyes again and looked around at his current surroundings. "Well, this is new," he said quietly as he pushed himself to his feet. Wincing in agony, he clutched his side for a time before bringing his hand up to eye level. "Great. Looks like they stabbed me again. This is really getting old. Is this shit ever going to end?" he wondered aloud. After a moment, he looked around again and frowned slightly. "Yep, definitely new. I don't recognize any of this. Where the hell am I?" Looking around for a while, he decided to just start walking. After all, he wasn't even sure if the Hokage knew he was missing yet. He also wasn't sure which direction led back to the village. Then he came to a realization. "Oh, those bastards. They dumped me in the forest of death, didn't they? After all, if you want to hide a body, this'd be the place to do it." Grumbling for a moment, he looked around once again and really took in his surroundings. It was almost pitch black inside of the forest. The only light was from the small beams of moonlight shining down through the gaps of the treetops. "Thank Kami I can see in the dark, or this would be pretty damn bad." Pausing for a time, he turned and peered through the darkness all around him, trying to find some kind of landmark he could use to determine where he was. Unfortunately, all he could see around him was trees and a foreboding darkness. He almost gave up trying to find anything to help him along his way. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a glinting light deeper into the darkest reaches of the forest. Frowning in confusion, he proceeded to walk slowly towards the light. As he grew closer to whatever the heck it was, he could feel something calling out to him. Or at least, that's how it felt to Naruto. Sadly, the more he walked towards the object, the further away it seemed to get. Frowning in confusion, he stopped walking towards it and brought a hand up to his head, massaging his forehead for a moment as he tried to make sense of everything. After relaxing for a time, he began to approach the object again, hoping his mind was just playing tricks on him or something. When it looked as if he was finally getting closer, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank Kami," he said. When he reached the object, he glanced at it for a time before looking at his surroundings. The immediate area was well lit, which was a bit odd, considering that it was nighttime. A lot of the trees had smooth areas, as if the bark had been torn off, and what remained was sanded down. Walking up to one of the trees, he pressed his fingers against a strange symbol scratched into the tree. "What the hell is all of this?" he wondered aloud. Eventually shrugging it off, Naruto looked at the stone in the center of the clearing, or rather what was embedded in the stone. Protruding from the stone was a magnificent sword that gleamed brilliantly in the light. Looking it over carefully, he could tell that the sword was of peerless craftsmanship and looked as if it could cleave through anything and everything in its path. The handguard looked like golden wings and, right in the center, there was a large red jewel. Taking one last glance at the various symbols, or were they runes? Shrugging it off, he mumbled, "I really want to know what the hell these runes mean." Looking back at the weapon, he reached for the handle and grasped it firmly in his hand. Afterwards, with very little effort, he pulled the sword from the stone and gave it a few practice swings. It's a lot lighter than I thought it'd be." Looking back down at the stone, he saw a sheath for the sword materialize as if by magic. Blinking a couple of times, he decided to just go with it and proceeded to sheathe the sword and slung the strap over his shoulder so the sword would hang neatly on his back. Looking at the runes again, he walked over to them and traced his fingers along some of the runes. Frowning slightly, he was about to just give up and leave, but then his mind became flooded with images and a whole slew of information. Clutching at his head, he screamed from the sheer pain he was in. When it had finally passed, he breathed heavily for a time until he eventually managed to calm himself down. Afterwards, he looked at the runes again and realized he could actually read the runes now. Blinking a couple of times in shock, he soon shrugged it off and began to read what they said. "Here slumbers the great blade of conquerors and rules past. The hero King Marth was last to wield the mighty Falchion, and with it, he slew a great dragon. Guided by his staunchest allies and worshipped as the king of the known world, the Hero King brought an age of peace where once was calamity. The great Hero King knew his death was nigh and, fearing for the future should the great evil return someday, he sealed the mighty Falchion away so that it might find its next true friend. Whomsoever pulls Falchion from the stone will be the next Hero King, ruler of all the lands. Falchion's new wielder shall unite the nations and bring an age of peace never seen before. Should you draw Falchion from the stone, know that you are a direct descendant of the mighty Hero King. A fair warning. Only you may wield the Falchion. Should anyone attempt to take your blade from you, they may very well perish. Falchion has chosen you and you alone. Do be careful not to let another soul touch the blade. The Falchion has chosen you, be warned that it is a sign that a great evil has awoken and will attempt to plunge the world into an age of chaos and calamity. You must save the world before it can be destroyed. Best of luck to you and your allies. Naruto blinked a couple of times and said, well damn. So, wielder of the mighty Falchion and future Hero King, Marth, I swear I've heard that name before. Meh, I'll figure it all out later. Right now I need to get the hell out of this forest. Drawing the sword from its sheath, he looked it over for a time before saying, damn glad nobody else can so much as touch you. It'll keep the likes of Sasuke away from you. Replacing the sword back within its sheath, he turned and began walking again. After some time, he reached the tower in the center of the forest of death. Sighing, he walked up to the wall and banged his head a few times. I am so lost. If I go in the opposite direction, I should end up at one of the gates right. Ugh. I really don't want to run the risk of bumping into any hungry animals or vicious insects. What the hell am I supposed to do? I can help you. A woman's voice could be heard saying. When he jumped and spun around, a look of panic on his face, the woman giggled. Relax. I mean you no harm. I only want to help you. Naruto blinked a couple of times as he looked the woman over. She was wearing a red leather top that extended a short ways past her butt. The sides were stitched together, though there were slits that left a log of leg showing on both sides. She wore knee-high red boots, and under that she wore stockings that extended almost all the way up her legs. As his gaze went up her body, he saw that a generous portion of her cleavage was showing, which made him blush a bit. Looking further up, he saw that she had green hair and green eyes. Just looking at her, he could tell that she was different from anyone he had ever met. My name's Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name, miss? Naruto asked. The woman smiled kindly at him and said, I am Tiki, a Manakite. I promise I shall explain that to you later, Naruto Uzumaki. Just know that I am a very old being, and I am here to guide you as the next Hero King, just as I once helped Marth. For now, allow me to be your guide out of this forest. Naruto smiled at her gratefully and said, that sounds wonderful, Tiki-chan. Thank you. As they walked through the forest of death on their way back to the village, Tiki decided to begin her explanation of various things. As I said before, I am a Manakite. Essentially, I am what you call a dragon. My powers are kept in check in this form, and I unleash my abilities through the use of something called a dragonstone. There are many such beings out there. The Gels, Lagas, basically beast people. Like me, they can transform, but they are able to transform into a variety of beasts such as lions, small cats, birds, etc. Then there's people that specialize in the art of flying on creatures called Pegasi, which are essentially winged horses capable of soaring through the sky. Riding atop these magnificent creatures, people known as Pegasus Knights generally wield lances and attack from the sky. And of course, you have horses and people known as cavaliers who ride atop them and wield a variety of weapons such as swords, lances, axes, and bows. Before she could continue, Naruto interrupted her. Sorry Tiki-chan, I don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of these people and things you're talking about haven't been mentioned at all in any history class or anything. I haven't seen any Pegasi around, I've never even heard about people turning into animals, heck, you're the first Manakite I've ever met. These days, there's ninja, samurai, etc. Rarely does anyone fight atop horses, especially if they don't have to. While it all sounds awesome the way you're describing it, things are really different now as compared to back then. Tiki blinked a couple of times before nodding her head in understanding. I suppose that makes sense. However, they most certainly still exist. The Pegasi are hidden away so they may never be used for the art of war again. However, in times of need, they will return. As for the beast people, they are more than capable of hiding amongst civilization. They appear to be human, but they hide the fact that they are different. If you think about it logically, they might be afraid to transform and show what they really are. The reason for this is simple. Have you heard of the Bijuu? Naruto sighed and reached down, touching his belly. Of course I have. I have the QB no Yoko sealed inside of me, after all. I've been abused by the villagers countless times. They've tried to kill me numerous times. In fact, they tried to dispose of my lifeless body in the forest of death this time. That's how I came to be in the forest to begin with. Vicky scowled and shook her head in mild disbelief. How horrible people are. Then again, it is human nature. People are cruel and oftentimes heartless. But enough about that, lest I lose my temper and harm someone upon our return to the village. Breathing in and out slowly to calm herself, she continued with her explanation. The man your people know as the Sage of Six Paths split the Juubi into 9 separate beings known today as the Bijuu. People grew to fear the Bijuu simply because they existed. They were used by cruel people and were eventually captured and given away foolishly by your first Hokage. The Bijuu should never have been mistreated in such a way, but Hashirama Senju was a fool. Simply for being different, the Bijuu were ostracized and mistreated. The people of the world have come to loathe and fear those who are different from them, such as the Lagas. If people knew about them, chances are they'd either enslave them or attempt to exterminate their species as a whole, all for being different. Humans have become such a violent, horrible species. No offense to you intended, Naruto-kun. Naruto shook his head and said, none taken. Humans are cruel and they have been for as long as I've known them. And. Vicky frowned as she realized what he was about to say. Do not worry about being accepted by them, Naruto-kun. You have a great destiny before you, and even if the village of Konoha does not accept you, I am sure the other nations will gladly join you in the end once they see your pure heart and soul. You are truly destined for great things. Thanks Tiki-chan. Oh. Looks like we've arrived. Naruto exclaimed as he hurried ahead towards a nearby gate. Finally. Vicky giggled as she joined her new friend. Without a word, she opened the gate and left the forest of death with him. Afterwards, she shut the gate again so that none of the beasties of the forest could escape and wreak havoc in the village of Konohagakure. Looking at Naruto, she was about to say something when they were suddenly surrounded by Anbu. Taking a defensive stance, Tiki was prepared to call on the power of her Dragonstone, but paused when Naruto placed a hand gently upon her arm. It's okay. They won't attack us. Tiki frowned, but decided to place her trust in Naruto. The purple-haired Anbu approached and removed her mask. Naruto-kun, are you alright? We've been searching everywhere for you. Hokage-sama has been so worried about you. What happened? Naruto scowled and said, the villagers happened. They tried to kill me again and then dumped me in the forest of death to try and get rid of me for good. It's lucky I found Falchion and met Tiki-chan, or else I'd probably still be stuck in there. Yugao's eyes widened as she chanced to glance at the sword strapped to Naruto's back. After a moment, she pried her eyes away from the legendary blade and looked at Tiki. Thank you Tiki-san. For guiding Naruto-kun out of the forest. Come, we need to see Hokage-sama immediately. Tiki nodded and allowed the Anbu to take them before the Hokage. Hokage's office. Upon arriving in the Hokage's office, Naruto stared hard into the Hokage's eyes and said, hey Gramps. Hiruzen frowned sadly at his surrogate grandson. Where have you been, Naruto-kun? I feared the worst this time. Naruto scowled and said, the Anbu you assigned to guard me this time didn't do their damn jobs. I was beaten and damn near killed by the mob this time, Gramps. They dumped me in the forest of death and left me there to die. I'd do something about the assholes that were supposed to protect me. The third scowled and said, Anbu, bring me Kakashi Hatake and the Anbu that were on guard duty this time. I want to hear what their excuse is this time. When a couple of Anbu left to go and retrieve their targets, Hiruzen looked back into Naruto's eyes and said, for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened to you again, Naruto-kun. If I hadn't been involved in another council meeting, I could have done something to stop it, I'm sure. Sadly, it would seem they waited until I was busy to enact this plan of theirs. It's fine Gramps. I don't blame you. Though I do wish you told me a few things before things got to this point. Such as me housing the QB no Yoko. Seeing the look on the third's face, Naruto nodded and said, I've known for a while now. Kinda hard not to piece it all together. Sorry, Naruto-kun. I truly just wanted you to have a normal childhood and grow up happy and strong. I didn't want your burden wearing you down. You deserve to live a better life, but plans like that have a nasty way of coming derailed. Hiruzen said, sighing heavily. Naruto-kun, after I deal with Kakashi and the others that neglected their duty, I have something I've been meaning to tell you for a while now. I just wasn't sure how to tell you. If it's about my parents, I know who my dad is. I don't have a clue who my mom is, but I think it's safe to assume I got my last name from her. Naruto said with a shrug. Afterwards, he walked over to the portrait of Minato Namikaze on the wall and stood beside it. When Hiruzen looked at him, he couldn't help but faceap him. Of course. I just wish the people would realize the truth. You deserve far better than the hand you've been dealt in life. I might have to take some drastic measures to get the truth across to everyone. Whatever you're going to do, you should make sure you're ready for the fallout. People are going to be in denial for a while after the truth is revealed to them. They're going to claim you're lying and that I'm the demon in human form, and so on and so on. Naruto said, sighing heavily afterwards. Hiruzen shook his head in disappointment. You're right. But if it helps you even a little, it's worth a shot. Anyways, looking at the center of the room, he watched as the Anbu appeared with Kakashi Hatake and the other two Anbu he had assigned to watch Naruto. Narrowing his eyes on them, Hiruzen asked, "So what's your excuse for not guarding Naruto-kun this time?" While Kakashi remained silent and shrugged dismissively, Hiruzen looked to the other two Anbu. The first one, a man, removed his mask and said, "My apologies, Hokage-sama. Kakashi insisted that we wait at HQ for a while. As he is our superior." Hiruzen scowled and said, "So you're going to pin all the blame on Kakashi, hmm? Very well then. Kakashi, what do you have to say for yourself? Did you decide that it would be fine to arrive 3 hours late to your post so you could read your precious smut? Or was there another reason for your laziness?" Kakashi simply smiled at the Hokage and said, "Naruto's fine, so I don't see the problem. Besides, I wanted to catch up on my reading. There's really no reason to worry about him so much." Naruto scowled and clenched his fists angrily. However, Hiruzen beat him to the punch, slamming Kakashi with a massive burst of killing intent. Naruto-kun was not fine. The mob attempted to kill him, Kakashi. He was dumped in the forest of death and left to die. Do you not care that he's the son of your late sensei? Kakashi frowned deeply and said, "Honestly. No. No, I don't. I have more important things to do than look after the boy that killed my sensei. If Kushina hadn't become pregnant, they'd be fine. Besides, I refuse to acknowledge that creature as my sensei's son. It's his fault they're gone." Hiruzen shook his head and said, "So you'd blame an innocent young man for what happened? His parents trusted you, Kakashi. They would have wanted you to look after their son. Naruto has done nothing to warrant such hatred from you. But fine." Sighing agitatedly, Hiruzen narrowed his eyes, glaring at Kakashi. "From now on, you are forbidden from reading your smut. You aren't even allowed to read it in the privacy of your home. You can't read it on missions. You can't read it in public. In fact, I'm having you banned from all bookstores within the village. Finally, I want you to bring all of your smut books to me so I can dispose of them in my own way. And if I hear that Urei so much as attempts to gift you one of his smut books, I'll take that from you too and burn it right in front of you." Eye widening in horror, Kakashi said, "You can't do that to me. They're such beautiful works of art. I need them. I can't." "Do you really think anyone would help you, Kakashi? The councils hold no power over me, so they can't save you from your punishment. I suggest you bring all of your books to me now, Kakashi. You're lucky I don't order your execution for neglecting your duty." Hiruzen exclaimed angrily. Kakashi scowled but hurried out of the office to go and do as commanded. Once he was gone, Hiruzen looked at the other two Anbu that had neglected their duty. "As for you two, as you've proven you cannot be trusted to do your jobs, I am removing you from the ranks of Anbu effective immediately. You'll be stuck on gate duty until I deem you ready to go on missions again. You failed not only me, but yourselves and Naruto-kun as well. Now hand over your masks and get the hell out of my office. I suggest you report in early tomorrow for your new duties." The now ex-Anbu did as they were told before leaving the office. They were disappointed, but mostly with themselves, rather than the Hokage's judgment. Once they were gone, Hiruzen looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto-kun, we have much to discuss. Tiki-san, Yugao, I want you two to be here for this conversation as well. The rest of you are dismissed." Watching as the other Anbu left the room, the third Hokage activated the silencing seals and began to speak. "Naruto-kun, you are correct that you are the son of Minato Namikaze. Your mother was a woman named Kushina Uzumaki. Konoha used to be allied with a village known as Uzushiogakure, which housed the Uzumaki clan. You are perhaps the last Uzumaki alive. The Uzumaki clan were the true descendants of the ancient hero king, Marth. However, none had ever been called by the legendary blade you now possess. Falchion was hidden away with powerful magic, the likes of which is unseen in this day and age. It would seem that Falchion has chosen you now, Naruto-kun. There is a legend that ties in with your new discovery." Hiruzen explained, a grim expression on his face. "You are destined to lead the elemental nations, Naruto-kun. You are meant to unite the elemental nations under one banner. It is up to you to bring peace to a war-torn world. It will not be easy, as the nations are in a type of cold war. There's always the threat of war and there is always conflict of some kind. Absolutely anything can trigger a war that would ravage the nations." Sighing softly, Hiruzen looked sadly into Naruto's eyes. "If anyone can pull it off, I'm certain it will be you. You have my full support, Naruto-kun. Anyways, the legend says that the future hero king will go through many trials and tribulations with his queen and friends at his side. According to the legend, you and your dearest friend were destined for one another. She will be your queen. Your allies will become your best friends and a type of family for you. Tiki Dono here is one of many allies you will make in your quest. If I were you, I would listen to her advice and take her words to heart." Naruto-kun, we will need to get in touch with the Fire Daimyo and inform him that Falchion has finally chosen the next Hero King. We will do everything in our power to guide you and ensure that there will be no opposition when it is time for you to take the throne. Hiruzen said. After a time, he sighed again and said, I can only imagine how the people of Konoha will react when they learn that you are to be the next ruler of the elemental nations. Fire Daimyo-sama and I will tell the people the truth about you, your parents, and about your birthright. I know you wanted to be Hokage someday, but it would seem you were always destined for something far greater. Vicky nodded as she looked into Naruto's eyes. He is right about a great many things. There will be much opposition on your path to the throne. You will first have to win over the people of the elemental nations, though the people of Konoha will be far harder to win over than anyone else. One thing you should know is that your actions will speak far louder than any words ever could. Leave Konohagakure's people for last if need be. They are far more stubborn than others will be. Hiruzen sighed and massaged the bridge of his nose. Sadly, she is right about that. You will have an easier time convincing the other nations to follow you than you would trying to make these idiots listen to you. Naruto sighed as well and said, sadly. And my dearest friend, huh? Sakura-chan's my best friend. In fact, she's one of the only friends I have. I don't know how she feels about me, but I know how I feel about her. Hiruzen chuckled and said, then perhaps you should talk to her about your feelings. She might just reciprocate them. Only one way to find out, after all. The blonde chuckled a bit and said, sounds like a plan to me, Gramps. Still, I don't know if it'll be that easy. It's not easy to talk about your feelings, after all. I want to, believe me, but what if she doesn't feel the same? The third simply smirked knowingly at his surrogate grandson. I suggest you talk to her about it soon. You might be pleasantly surprised. But, if you're so afraid to, I suppose I could call her here and I could ask her for you. Dude, I get the feeling she'd rather you confess to her yourself without me getting involved. Naruto blushed and said, you have a point. I suppose I should talk to her soon. Yes, Naruto-kun. What is it? Hiruzen asked. There's a few girls in class that I know like me and I kinda like some of them too. I'm confused, what do I do in that case? Naruto questioned unsurely. The Hokage frowned and thought for a time before saying, well, considering your status, it wouldn't surprise me if you end up in a polyamorous relationship with a large number of women. Besides that, you have expressed a desire to have a large family to me before. I think you deserve to be happy with those you love. But before you think about any of that, I want you to talk to Sakura and learn how she feels. Can you promise me that you'll talk to her soon? Sure, Gramps. I promise I'll tell Sakura-chan how I feel soon. I just need to build up my courage before I even attempt such a thing. I'm nervous as hell about it right now. Naruto admitted. Hiruzen chuckled softly and said, just have confidence in yourself, boy. Now looking at Yugao, he said, Yugao, as of this moment, I am removing you from the Anbu ranks. You are to train Naruto-kun in the use of his new weapon. He needs to be prepared for absolutely anything that might threaten him and those he cherishes. Invite your boyfriend to assist you if need be. Ikidono, I'm counting on you to teach Naruto-kun everything he could ever need to know. He will need your knowledge if he's to achieve the dream of peace. Vicky simply smiled and nodded her head. Yugao took her mask and placed it upon the Hokage's desk. As you wish, Hokage-sama. If I need to for any reason, I'll bring in Hei-kun, but for now I think I'll train Naruto myself. However, what do we do about the academy? Will Naruto continue to go to class? Before Hiruzen could say anything, Naruto scoffed and said, like I'm really learning anything there. Mizuki has been actively sabotaging me for years now, and Iruka doesn't do a damn thing to help me. In fact, whenever I try to ask a question or answer one of their questions, I'm either ignored or they snap at me for daring to speak. Mizuki's constantly putting gain jutsu on my tests and Iruka just lets him get away with it all. They treat me like I'm an idiot all the damn time, and I'm fucking sick of it. I want to learn and get better, but I can't do that if they continue to sabotage me. On top of that, they should have helped me to learn a different clone jutsu, because I have too much chakra to perform the damn clone jutsu. It's frustrating as hell, Gramps. Hiruzen scowled and asked, why didn't you tell me about this before, Naruto-kun? I could have done something about this. You're just 2 months away from graduation, so anything I might try wouldn't help you anywhere near enough. Wait, as if a figurative light bulb went off in his head, he scowled and slammed his fist on his desk. Is that why you failed the past 2 times? Naruto nodded and said, yeah. Even if I answer all the questions right and do perfect on the Shuriken Jutsu test, to Jutsu, 2 out of 3 Academy Jutsu, etc., it doesn't matter. They fail me anyways regardless of how good I do. That's why I've always been the dead last. On top of that, they favor Sasuke and are constantly helping him in class. Have you even seen his written tests? There's little hints here and there on the paper to help him get the right answers. On top of that, it doesn't matter if somebody does better than him on the physical exams, they still give him the top score. If you ask me, I think the civilian council is paying them off. Hiruzen clenched his fists angrily and shouted for his Anbu to come to him. When they re-entered the room, he growled out, "Call the council together. I also want you to drag Iruka Yamino and Mizuki to the council chambers. Actually, make sure to drag Sasuke Uchiha before the council as well. I want to check something." The Anbu quickly nodded and disappeared to do as they had been ordered. As soon as they were gone, Hiruzen looked around at the three standing before him. "Tiki Dono, Yugao, Naruto-kun, you're coming with me. Naruto-kun, Tiki Dono, you two will weigh in on this meeting in an official setting. Should anyone question your inclusion, I'll deal with it. I expect the two of you to remain calm and make rational decisions." Tiki nodded and said, "We will control ourselves. We should hurry and prepare ourselves for this meeting." Hiruzen nodded in agreement with that as he got up and led the way to the council meeting room. Once there, he directed Tiki to sit beside him while Naruto sat on her other side. Yugao chose to stand behind the Hokage so she could serve as his guard if need be. After some time had passed, the various council members began to file into the room. The civilians were a bit grumpy and could be heard grumbling to themselves about being disturbed. The clan heads were calm, ignoring the civilians and all their complaints. Then finally were the elders, Hiruzen's old teammates. Looking around at everyone, he said, "I'm glad you arrived in a timely manner." Before he could say any more, one of the civilians glared hatefully at Naruto and asked, "What the hell is the demon doing here? He has no right sitting amongst the esteemed council. He shouldn't even be in this room with us." Hiruzen scowled at the man and said, "Interrupt me again and I'll have your head ripped off and put on a spike. And for the record, his name is Naruto Uzumaki. If any of you dare to call him a demon again, I will eliminate you." As for his presence here, he is the last surviving member of the Uzumaki clan in Konoha. You remember them, they were our allies for many years. But no, you assholes had the Uzumaki clan wiped out of our history lessons. There are no more books in the library detailing the Uzumaki clan, nobody is being taught about them in the academy, there is no mention of them anywhere anymore. And yet our shinobi continue to wear the Uzumaki symbol on their uniforms. All because you didn't want to acknowledge Naruto-kun and his connection to the long-lost clan. I should have killed all of you assholes the moment you dared to do such a thing. But no, I was too afraid to do anything. Grumbling irritably, he decided to continue. As the last member of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto-kun has a rightful place here as a member of the council. As for the woman beside me, she is someone very important. That is all I will tell you. She is to act in the role of advisor to me. As far as I'm concerned, her opinion and decisions are equal to my own authority in the village." Danzo scowled distastefully at this and said, "That is ridiculous, Hiruzen. What makes this woman so important? She is an outsider and has no place in this village. I call for the removal of this woman, effective immediately." Tiki frowned at the old cripple and said, "You have no authority here, Danzo Shimura. And for the record, he is Hokage-sama to you. You may not call him by his name in an official setting like this. You are an arrogant loward that should have been exterminated quite some time ago. After all, you are a great evil in this world that will need to be eliminated in order to bring peace to the world. If Hokage-sama doesn't deal with you right now, then I will." Hiruzen nodded and said, "Anbu. Kill the bastard and let us be done with it. I will not have him taint the village with his presence any longer. And for that matter, kill his accomplices too. I'm tired of all three of them." In an instant, Anbu appeared with their blades through Hamura's, Kageru's, and Danzo's bodies. However, Danzo disappeared and reappeared nearby with nary a scratch on him. Seeing this, Hiruzen and the others scowled at him. "I see. So you have turned yourself into an abomination in your efforts to cheat death and take that which does not belong to you. Very well then, I will act in the role of your executioner." Tiki said as she rose from her chair and turned to face her enemy. Danzo scowled at her and said, "You can't defeat me so easily. Besides that, do you really expect me to just sit still and let you do what you want to me? Rude." He called out, waiting for his soldiers to assist him. However, when nobody came to his rescue, he scowled and called out for them again. Again they didn't appear. Son of a bitch. Fine, I'll just have to destroy all of you. Sadly for him, he was surrounded by some of the most powerful people in the village, not to mention the mighty Manakite, Tiki. As Tiki neared, Danzo attempted to use the power of Kodomatsukami on her to make her obey him, but his power didn't seem to be working on her. Unable to fathom why that was, he prepared to go on the attack in another way, but was soon forced to leap away as the shadows themselves seemed to try and wrap around him. Scowling, he realized that he was trapped and likely didn't have much he could do to survive this fight. Still, he was a stubborn individual and refused to go down without a fight. In an instant, Danzo fired a number of wind bullets at Tiki, forcing her to leap aside to avoid taking damage from such an attack. Seeing as she had fallen for the distraction, he turned his attention on Hiruzen and hurried towards him, preparing to end the decrepit old man's life. However, he soon felt disoriented and fell to his knees. Groaning, Danzo shot a quick glance off to the side to see Inoichi with his hands in some form of hand seal. Damn you, it didn't take much longer for Tiki and the others to end Danzo's life. Once he was dealt with, Hiruzen and the others retook their seats. Looking at the civilian council, Hiruzen asked, "Do I need to deal with you fools in the same way? I'd prefer not to kill you all if I can help it. But if you press the issue and piss me off, I'll eliminate you as well." The civilians nodded their heads in understanding, not one of them uttering a word. Seeing that they were remaining silent, Hiruzen called out, "Anbu. Bring in our 3 guests of honor." The doors opened and in walked the Anbu with Iruka, Mizuki, and Sasuke. Taking them to the center of the room, the Anbu pushed them down onto their knees, much to their agitation. Seeing their precious Uchiha being disrespected in such a way, one of the civilians shouted, "Leave Sasuke-sama alone. He's done nothing to warrant such treatment." Hiruzen stared calmly at the civilian council member before saying, "I will do as I damn well please. And you have no authority over my Anbu. Try to order them around again and you will be dealt with appropriately. Now shut up and let's get this over with." Looking down at Iruka and Mizuki, he said, "It has come to my attention that you fools have been sabotaging Naruto-kun. He is nowhere near as stupid as you would have people believe, and I know he could easily answer any of the questions on those written tests you're so fond of. However, it would seem you fools would rather fail him and ensure he never became a ninja of our village. Naruto-kun deserves a fair shot at becoming a shinobi, just as any other student. You have failed in your duties and are being removed as teachers. From now on, you live the rest of your days as regular civilians. If need be, I'll have your chakra sealed. And to make things worse on yourselves, you've been helping Sasuke Uchiha to cheat, so he would be number 1 in the class." Glaring at the civilian council at this point, he slammed them with his killing intent and shouted, "And you bastards were paying them off to do all of that, weren't you? Just for that, I'm having all of you thrown in prison, so you can rot in there for the rest of your miserable lives." "You can't. You need us," a female civilian shouted. "No. I really don't," Hiruzen said before snapping his fingers. When the Anbu appeared, he said, "Take them to Ibiki. I want to know about every crime they've committed. And get Iruka and Mizuki out of here as well." The Anbu nodded and proceeded to follow through with their orders, disappearing with the specified people. Once they were gone, the Hokage turned his attention to Sasuke. "Sasuke Uchiha. I have a few questions to ask you. I expect you to answer me honestly. If you try to lie to me or you act out in any way, you won't like what I do to you. If you understand me, nod your head." When Sasuke looked up into his eyes and nodded, Hiruzen said, "Good. First question. Have your teachers helped you cheat?" Sasuke nodded once. "Yes. But they were only trying to ensure an elite like me stayed at the top of the class where I belong. Let me guess, you believe the word of that loser, don't you? I've done nothing to be punished for. Have you ever sought out therapy for what you went through? What happened to your family has left a wound that will never truly heal?" Hiruzen asked. "Therapy is for the weak. I am strong. I am an elite. We Uchiha are not weak simpletons that need to be pampered," Sasuke exclaimed angrily. Hiruzen sighed and shook his head in disappointment. "Sasuke, I am ordering you to seek therapy for what you've been through. If you refuse to show up for any of your appointments, I will see to it that you never graduate and become a shinobi of my village. Now, I have a few more questions for you. First, do you know the most important thing a shinobi needs? Power. The only thing that matters is power. Power enough to kill all your enemies and make those who have wronged you pay with their lives," Sasuke said, glaring into the Hokage's eyes. Naruto facepalmed and said, "Such a typical answer from an arrogant sack of crap like you. No, Sasuke, the most important thing for any ninja is teamwork. Nobody can win every fight on their own. There's a reason we're placed on teams of 3 with a Jonin sensei. We watch each other's backs and we work as a team." Sasuke scoffed and said, "Of course you think that, dope. You're a pathetic one-up with no skills to speak of. Not like me and not like anyone in my clan. We don't need teams to be great." Hiruzen shook his head in disappointment. "Naruto-kun is right, Sasuke. Even other villages understand the need for teamwork. I can see you're too far gone. There is no correcting your behavior by this point. Sasuke, I am going to make one request of you. If you know what's good for you, you listen and obey. If I let you graduate with your classmates, I want you to agree to work together with whoever I assign to your team. If you agree to work as a team and get along with them, I will allow you to graduate. If you refuse, on the other hand, you'll never get the opportunity to kill your brother. Do you understand me?" The Uchiha scowled and exclaimed, "You can't do this to me, you senile old fool. We Uchiha never needed a team before and we sure as hell don't need one now. We are elite. We are invincible. We are perfect. We..." Before Sasuke could say anything more, he was silenced by Hiruzen's killing intent. You are nothing special, boy. Your clan were mediocre at best. Itachi was one of a rare few, someone that had the ability to become Hokage someday. Your father and his comrades were planning to stage a coup to take the mantle of Hokage for himself. The Uchiha clan wanted to rule Konohagakure with an iron fist and ensure that only the Uchiha mattered. Screw everyone else. I gave the order for Itachi to kill your father and his co-conspirators. You see, Sasuke, Itachi is no traitor. Your clanmates, on the other hand. They were all scum. Nothing more. They were insignificant. Just as you are. Sasuke glared into the Hokage's eyes and exclaimed, you're lying. Itachi was a traitor. Itachi betrayed the clan and killed everyone that ever mattered to me. We Uchiha were always meant to rule over the pathetic masses. Once I kill Itachi, I might as well kill you and take the mantle of Hokage for myself. I'll succeed where my father failed. Naruto blinked and asked, the hell, Sasuke? Are you really so deranged that you'd actually try to kill Hokage-sama? Hiruzen sighed and said, Anbu, have Sasuke's chakra sealed and then place him under house arrest. He is no longer allowed to leave his compound for any reason. I'll assign a genin team to fetch his groceries so he can continue living in his compound in peace. You turned out to be one giant disappointment, Sasuke Uchiha. I'll assign a Yamanaka clansman to act as your therapist. I want you to talk to him or her and try to recover from what has been done to you. It's not entirely your fault that you turned out this way. Itachi and I had hoped you would be better than your clan was, but it seems that was a pipe dream. Before Sasuke could retort in any way, he was taken away by a couple of Anbu agents. Left alone with the clan heads, Tiki and Yugao, Hiruzen looked at each of them one by one. Friends, something has happened that will change things in a drastic way. Naruto-kun has come into possession of the legendary blade, Falchion. You know the legend behind the sword. Shibi's eyes widened fractionally before he nodded and said, so Naruto-kun is the direct descendant of Marth. I had not expected this to happen. Hiashi frowned deeply and said, so Naruto is to be the one destined to unite the elemental nations. It's hard to imagine. Hiruzen shook his head and said, before any of you make any assumptions, Naruto-kun is far smarter and far more capable than he has let on. He has been held back by those that wished him harm. In truth, if his teachers hadn't been sabotaging him, he likely would have made Rookie of the Year. Besides that, you know who his parents are. Or rather were. Naruto-kun has always been destined for greatness, and this just proves it. Inoichi nodded in understanding. We'll do everything in our power to assist young Naruto-kun, Hokage-sama. Will you be informing Daimyo-sama of this? Hiruzen nodded and said, I will contact him in a few days to inform him of what has happened. Whereas we can train him to become the strongest shinobi and ruler he can be, Daimyo-sama and his aides will teach Naruto-kun everything he could ever need to know about the politics side of things. However, in order to keep up appearances and help Naruto-kun to learn more about the world, we will have him graduate alongside his classmates. I just need to determine the teams and put him on one he will work well with. Hiki smiled at the Hokage and said, I would suggest putting Naruto on a team with the Sakura Haruno girl. Yugao would make for a good sensei. I will leave it up to you to determine who the third teammate will be. I trust your judgment. The Hokage nodded before looking at Yugao, Naruto, and Tiki. You three are dismissed. Naruto-kun, I want you to come see me later. I have some things to give you and a specific jutsu in mind that will help you deal with the clone issue. For now, return home and take this time to relax. You will begin your training tomorrow afternoon after we are finished. Naruto, Tiki, and Yugao all left the council chambers, leaving Hiruzen to discuss more politics with the clan heads. As soon as they were gone, the third Hokage looked at his friends and said, I expect you all to help guide him. Stress to your clans that Naruto-kun is meant to be protected and treated with the utmost respect. I will make a public announcement tomorrow to address certain issues. I swear that if I hear someone from one of your clans has attempted to attack him again or they turned a blind eye to his abuse, I will take it out on you. Do you understand me? Each of the clan heads nodded as one, not one of them willing to piss off the Hokage any further. Good. You're all dismissed. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I'll ensure that you and your loved ones will live a happy, prosperous life from this day forward. When Naruto and Tiki reached his apartment, the blonde let out an aggravated sigh as he stared at it from the outside. They've broken again. I wonder if anything's left this time. Following Naruto into the apartment, the beautiful Manakite frowned as she looked around at all the graffiti and destruction. They've done this before. How awful. Humans have truly become worse over the years if they are willing to cause so much pain and strife. Naruto began to walk around his apartment, taking a look at everything with a saddened gaze on his face. The villagers had taken all of his food, milk, and more, and splattered it all over the walls and floor. There was nothing left for him to eat. Looking at his sink, he realized that they had removed the pipes, meaning that so much as trying to fill a glass of water would be rather difficult. All around his apartment was shattered glass and ceramic plates and mugs. Walking to the window at the end of the hall, he could feel tears stinging at his eyes. My plants, why? Why would they do this? They were growing so well. As she watched Naruto survey his apartment, Tiki clenched her fists and nearly began grinding her teeth together from all the anger she felt in this moment. Following him into his bedroom, she let out a gasp at what she saw. Just looking at his bed, it was obvious that there was no way to sleep on it any longer. Not only was it completely destroyed, but blood, most likely from an animal, covered the bed and blankets. On the walls were various messages written in the same blood. Tiki watched as Naruto went to a loose floorboard and pried it apart. When he began to break down in tears, she walked up to him and knelt down beside him, hugging him close. Was this where you stored your valuables? The blonde nodded sadly and said, yes. They took everything from me this time. It wasn't enough to try and kill me and get rid of my body. They had to ruin my home as well. I have nowhere else to go, Tiki. Where are we going to sleep? What are we going to eat? I want to say that I can't believe they did this, but that would be a lie. They're such horrible monsters. As Naruto broke down in tears, Tiki simply held him close, letting him cry into her shoulder. Let's go talk with the Hokage. Where would he be at this hour? He's probably still in that meeting with the clan heads. After that I don't know. He might return to his office, or he might head home to get some sleep. He's had a busy day, after all. Naruto explained. What if he can't help? Tiki frowned sadly and shook her head. Come, Naruto. Let us go and meet with the Hokage once again. Even if we have to interrupt him in the middle of his meeting, I am sure he will understand. You need somewhere safe to sleep for the night. We also need sustenance in the morning if we hope to ready ourselves for the day. I am sure the Hokage can help. Naruto wiped away his tears, though his eyes were still watery. You're right. I hate this place. I hate these people. I know I shouldn't say that and I shouldn't wish harm upon anyone, but these people are horrible. I don't know what the heck I ever did to anyone to deserve this. It's like just being born was a terrible crime. Just because I house the QP no Yoko doesn't mean they have to do this. It's not fair. It's not right. I wish something would happen to change their minds about me. I want all the pain to just stop. Tiki simply hugged him close for a time. It'll be okay, Naruto. Remember that you don't need to win these people over for some time yet. You are destined for great things and you are going to meet and befriend a number of people on your path to become the next hero king. If you don't want to win these people over after you've united the other nations, then you don't have to. Some people are beyond redemption, after all. Now come, let's get you out of here. I'm sure the Hokage will understand our plight. Naruto nodded before standing up and leaving the apartment with Tiki. As they made their way towards the Hokage tower, the blonde wiped away the remaining tears before looking at his companion. You've made mention a few times about the humans of the past. From what you've told me, they seem like much better people than the humans of today. I'm curious to know what they were like in your time. Tiki looked at her new friend and said, back then, I was but a youngling, but I met some truly wonderful people. Marth was my very first friend and I cherished my bond with him. There was a war taking place at that time and things were rather chaotic for a time as well. However, just as there was bad men and women during that time, there were many wonderful people as well. Marth attracted a wide variety of people to his side. Each of our allies were kind, caring people. We each had our own goals and desires, but we united together to put a stop to an evil dragon called Medius and his minions. After we won our fight in the war, Marth was married to a dear friend of his, a woman by the name of Kita. They made for a wonderful couple and they truly cherished one another. They had many children together and we all cared for them dearly. Sadly, after the war was won, most of us went our separate ways, out to fulfill our own goals and shape our own futures. I continued to watch over Marth and his children throughout the years, though I never found love for myself. I do not have any regrets, but I do wonder what true love feels like. I was rather envious of their relationship, I must admit. Tiki explained. Naruto, I love the people of the world. I always have. But, as I watched humanity grow and evolve as the times went by, shaking her head in disappointment, she said, I came to realize that humanity has fallen far since the time of Marth, the hero king and all of his companions. Looking at Naruto again as they neared the Hokage tower, she said, I do not know the evil that you must face, Naruto. Whatever or whoever it is hasn't revealed themselves or made their goal clear. But it's obvious to me that this new evil is building up its forces, preparing itself for war. If we want to win the coming war and bring hope to the people, you will require a great deal of training and knowledge. I will help you as best I can, but we will need to recruit like-minded allies to our cause. If you are anything like Marth, you shouldn't have any problems. He had a natural charisma about him, and I can feel the same kind of feature in you. Naruto smiled thankfully at her, but as they entered the tower and began their ascent, he said, "But, I am not Marth. It might not be so easy for me." Vicky shook her head and said, "No, you are not Marth, that much is true. You are unique in your own way, and I know that you will be just fine. I am sure you will make many new allies, such as those in your class. Sometimes, I am sure you will surprise even yourself. You may not feel all that confident right now, but we can ease you into it. We have plenty of time, after all. Now come, let us speak with the Hokage." Pushing open the doors to the Hokage's office, they were both pleased and relieved to see Hiruzen was behind his desk once more. Upon seeing them, the aged Hokage frowned in confusion. What happened? Vicky guided Naruto to one of the chairs and gently pushed him until he was seated in it. Standing at his side, she looked into the Hokage's eyes and began to explain. Upon returning to Naruto's apartment, we found that it was destroyed to a disturbing level. The apartment is completely unlivable right now. It is our hope that you may be able to provide us with both lodgings and enough foodstuffs to keep us fed and healthy for some time. Hiruzen stared from Tiki down to Naruto. I see. I suppose it was too much to ask that they leave you alone to live in peace. Sighing sadly, he reached into one of the drawers on his desk and unsealed a number of scrolls, along with a few other items. Sliding them across his desk to Naruto, Hiruzen said, "This is just the beginning of your inheritance, Naruto-kun. The key opens the front door of your parents' home. I'll escort you there personally. I promise that your new home cannot be broken into by anyone, not even the likes of people like Danzo. You'll finally be able to rest easy at night." Naruto smiled in thanks as he stood up and took hold of everything. Holding it close, he smiled at the thought that his parents left him quite the inheritance. Seeing this, Tiki smiled softly at him and took half of what he was carrying. "Allow me to share in your burden, Naruto." "Thank you, Tiki-chan," Naruto said as the two of them followed the Hokage. Once they were out on the streets, he began to glance around somewhat nervously. Hiruzen glanced over his shoulder at Naruto and said, "Do not worry so much, Naruto-kun. So long as you are with me, no one will touch you. Besides, I do believe most people have gone home for the night. It is rather later, after all." The blonde, seeing the sense in the Hokage's words, breathed a sigh of relief and said, "You're right, Gramps. Thank you." "You're quite welcome, Naruto-kun. Now come, let's get you home," the third said as he continued to lead his young friend to his new home. Upon reaching the Uzumaki compound, Naruto shakily handed the rest of the scrolls to Tiki to hold for the time being. Taking out a kunai, he pricked his finger and smeared the blood across the seal on the front gate. Afterwards, he walked up to his new home slowly, almost as if he was afraid that this was a horrible dream that would be snatched away from him at any moment. Seeing how nervous he was, Tiki stepped up beside him and said, "Naruto, there is no reason to worry. I assure you that this is not a dream. You will finally be safe while you sleep. Your parents loved you. This is your new home. And I will be with you every step of the way. Okay?" Naruto took in a deep yet shaky breath and released it slowly. After, he smiled at Tiki and said, "Thank you. Let's go in." From there, he proceeded to unlock the front door and stepped inside. Turning on the lights via the switch, he looked around in awe. Everything looked as if it was all brand new. He figured this was probably due to his parents' knowledge of Fuinjutsu, so he wasn't going to question it just yet. Instead, he walked into the living room and motioned for his friend to place his inheritance on the table. Afterwards, he sat down on the couch with Tiki and rested his head on her shoulder. "Thank you, Tiki-chan. For everything." Holding him close, the Manakite said, "You're welcome, Naruto. I'll always be here for you. Okay?" Seeing him nod in response, she turned to face the Hokage. "Thank you as well, Hokage. Of course. Remember, I want you to speak with Sakura in the morning. Then, in the afternoon, we shall begin your training." "Oh." Reaching into one of his inner pockets, he pulled out a scroll and handed it to Naruto. "These are the instructions for the shadow clone technique. Read it carefully before you attempt to master this technique, okay, Naruto?" "Of course. Thanks again, Gramps," Naruto said before he let out a yawn. Rubbing at his eyes, he mumbled, "Sorry. Just kinda sleepy." Hiruzen smiled warmly at his young friend as he watched the blonde drift off to sleep. Looking into Tiki's eyes, he said, "I'll carry him to his new room. You should pick a room of your own and get some rest, Tiki Dono." Tiki thanked the Hokage as he lifted Naruto into his arms. Following after him, Tiki chose the room right next to the master bedroom, where Naruto would be sleeping. "This shall be my room. I wish to remain close to Naruto at all times. He will need my support, after all." After putting Naruto to bed, Hiruzen carefully shut the door so as not to disturb Naruto's sleep. Looking at Tiki, the Hokage said, "I understand. Come, I'll see myself out. Please lock the door behind me." I'll go with Naruto-kun personally to help him buy groceries and basic essentials that you are currently lacking. I will also guide you two to a fine eatery to enjoy a hearty breakfast before I send Naruto off to speak with his dear friend. Of course. You have my thanks, Hokage-sama. Tiki said as she followed him to the front door. She watched him exit the compound before she shut and locked the door. As she made her way to her bedroom, she stopped just outside to look towards the master bedroom. I will never let you be alone again, Naruto. I will always watch over you. And with that, she entered her room, prepped herself for bed, and went to sleep. The next morning. After leaving the safety of his new home, Naruto easily noticed the glares being sent his way by the people. Sure, he was a 15-year-old young man, but he knew he didn't have the skills required to take down a large mob like the one that had tried to dispose of him just yesterday. Still, he moved his hand ever closer towards the mighty Falchion blade, ready to draw it at a moment's notice. Sensing his unease, Tiki placed her hand on his and said, "Don't, Naruto-kun. Let's just go and meet with the Hokage. He will deal with these people later today, as he promised. I am with you, so no one will try to advance upon you. At least, that is my hope. If things turn sour, we may need to fight." "There will be no need for that," Yugao said as she stepped up to them. "Hokage-sama figured something might happen today, so he sent me to escort you." Motioning towards a nearby rooftop, Naruto and Tiki glanced in that direction. Upon spotting a well-hidden ambu, they turned back to Yugao and nodded. "Let's go." "Thank you, Yugao-sensei," Naruto said as he and Tiki began following her towards their destination. As they walked, Tiki paused to catch a large glass bottle that was thrown at the back of Naruto's head. Glaring in that direction, she said, "And what, pray tell, do you think you are doing? You really think it is okay for you to try and attack a child? What purpose could such a thing serve?" The woman who threw his glared at her and shouted, "That filth dares to taint the home of Fourth Sama and his wife. We won't let you monsters plague Fourth Sama's home or this village. It's time that someone does something about that foul creature. We might as well be the heroes that end that creature's life. Who's with me?" As the people around them began to cheer and advance towards them, Tiki handed the bottle to Naruto before grasping her dragonstone tight. She needn't have bothered, though, as the Anbu quickly descended onto the mob. They struggled for quite some time, but the Anbu managed to overpower them and arrest a lot of them. Before the Anbu could drag them off, someone shouted, "Enough. You fools have done enough to Naruto already. This is the absolute final straw. Don't arrest these bastards. Drag the lot of them to the center of the village. I think I'll use them to prove a point." Looking in the direction of the voice, everyone saw the third Hokage standing on a nearby rooftop, glaring down at them. Seeing him, one of the villagers screamed out, "You must help us. The demon has taken residence in Fourth Sama's home. We can't allow him to taint his home. Please." Hopping down in front of the downed mob, he glared coldly into the man's eyes. When he recognized this person, his eyes narrowed for a time as he grimaced in disgust for this person's actions. "You are Ko-Hyuga, are you not? I remember you. Hinata Hyuga's guardian, and you bear a grudge against the Kyubi no Yoko. The Ashi has warned me about you in the past, saying that you've been filling Hinata's head with lies about Naruto. To think you would be so far gone as to pull something like this. I'm disappointed in you, Ko. Do not worry, though. Your death will have meaning, and I'll use it to set things right." Ko was clearly confused as he stared up at the Hokage. "What do you mean? That boy cannot be allowed to taint Fourth Sama's home. You have to see that." Gears inside and shook his head. "I do not pity you, Ko. Pity is to be given to those who deserve it. You are simply scum beneath my feet. Anbu, take these fools and go. I'll be with you all shortly." Waving his hand dismissively, he watched as the Anbu disappeared with a rather sizable mob. Once they were gone, Hiruzen turned to Naruto and said, "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. It would seem breakfast will have to wait. Come with me. It is time that the people learn the truth. Tiki Dono, I want you to stand beside Naruto and protect him should anyone attempt anything. Yugao, please help gather everyone together. I want everyone to see this." "Yes, Hokage-sama. Naruto, Tiki-sama, I will see you later for training," Yugao said before she disappeared to do as she was told. Looking back at Naruto and Tiki, he watched as they held hands and smiled at the two of them. Without a word, he turned and led them through the streets until they came upon the center of the village where the mob now waited for their execution. It was obvious to all what was about to happen, but the mob still wished that somebody would help them. Naruto looked a bit nervous as he stood beside the Hokage, behind the various people in the mob. The people that had gathered certainly did not look happy, but then again, when were they ever when it came to Naruto? Holding Naruto's hand firmly in her grip, Tiki smiled supportively at him and said, "Stand tall, Naruto-kun. Do not show them fear. You will soon become a warrior of this village, a ninja like you've dreamed of. You have a grand journey ahead of you and exciting times lie ahead. So believe in yourself and be proud of who you are and who you are going to be." The blonde nodded and straightened his stance. "Thank you, Tiki-chan," he said as he looked out over the gathered villagers. He could make out some of his friends, as well as Sakura and Hinata, two of the girls he was more than happy to call his friends. In fact, a lot of his classmates were there, minus the obvious one being Sasuke Uchiha, considering he was on house arrest now. When Hiruzen activated a sound enhancement technique to amplify his voice, Naruto began to scan the people's faces. "Look at all the people. So many of them have hurt me before, but there's just as many friendly faces out there, if not more. I just hope what's about to happen doesn't traumatize them or make them hate me. I wish I could say I've called you all here for pleasant reasons. Unfortunately, many of you have gone against my orders regarding Naruto Uzumaki. What I'm about to reveal to everyone is a secret I wanted to be kept. I entrusted the truth with the men and women of the council, and they betrayed that trust. The truth is that I've been far too lenient on the people of this village, including those I thought I could trust." Sighing agitatedly, Hiruzen looked out over his villagers and continued. "Naruto Uzumaki is what is known as a Jinchuriki. Jinchuriki and the Biju are intimately related in the sense that the Jinchuriki are people that house said Biju. In Naruto's case, the mighty Kyuubi no Yoko was sealed within him on the night of his birth. This was not a decision that the fourth made lightly. No, my predecessor never wanted this life for Naruto Uzumaki. However, Minato knew that he could not ask another family to allow their child to be sacrificed in such a way. Naruto is Minato's flesh and blood, he is Minato's son. In truth, Minato married a woman named Kushina Uzumaki. The two of them were very much in love and they only wanted the best life for their child. However, on the night of Naruto's birth, someone released the Kyuubi no Yoko upon Konohagakure. You cannot kill a Biju. So, Minato and his wife sealed the Kyuubi within their son. They never wished for him to be a Jinchuriki. They wanted him to grow up as a normal, happy, healthy young man. Unfortunately, they were killed on the night of Naruto's birth by the very creature that they sealed away. Frowning as he looked around at the villagers, ninja and civilian alike, he said, "I was forced out of retirement because no one else could do the job. I confided in the council members that Naruto housed the Kyuubi. Looking back on that day, I made a serious mistake. The members of the civilian council called for Naruto's death the moment they learned that he housed the Kyuubi. They feared that Naruto was the beast. They did not believe in the fourth sealing prowess. So I put a law in place that forbade anyone from revealing Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki. Unfortunately, it would seem that they felt my law wouldn't apply to them. So Naruto's status was revealed to the entirety of the village." Scowling angrily, he said, "These people you see before you are just a small handful of the people that decided to create a game they called the Fox Hunt. Every year, on the anniversary of the Kyuubi attack, a mob gets together to hunt down and kill the demon. You all believed Naruto to be that demon, when in fact he was an innocent young child that did nothing wrong to any of you." Clenching his fists angrily, Hiruzen leveled such a fierce glare on the people that they were cowed into submission. As the years went by, people like these kneeling before you grew bolder and bolder until Naruto was unable to go a day without fearing for his life. Just yesterday, in fact, a mob attempted to kill Naruto. They disposed of his unconscious body inside the forest of death in the hopes that he would be forever lost and hopefully killed by the creatures that inhabit that particular training ground. I will explain what happened afterwards later. Instead, I want you to know that last night, Naruto's apartment was trashed completely to the point it is now completely unlivable. So I gave Naruto the means to enter his parents' home. These people you see before you ignored that possibility and, on his way to see me for our morning meeting, this mob decided to try and kill Naruto and his escorts." Looking out at the people, Hiruzen motioned towards his Anbu and said, "For those of you who still believe Naruto to be the demon itself, let this be a lesson to you. Do it." As per their Hokage's orders, the men and women of the mob were slain in quick succession until only Kohyuga remained. Walking up to him, Hiruzen grabbed his hair and forced him to look out at the gathered crowd. Without a word, he slit Ko's throat and let the Hyuga's body drop to the ground. Now, has the lesson been learned? The crowd had been stunned into silence by what they had just witnessed. However, one teenage girl stepped forward and looked from the Hokage to Naruto. "But what happened to Naruto-kun? You said they tried to kill him yesterday, but he looks just fine." Looking at the young woman, Hiruzen smirked inwardly as he saw that it was Sakura Haruno that had asked the question. "There is a reason for that. Before I explain the events of yesterday, all of you should know that Naruto is the last of his clan. The Uzumaki clan. Konohagakure and Uzushiogakure were once allies. However, someone in our village betrayed the Uzumaki clan and they were exterminated, leaving very few Uzumakis alive. Naruto may very well be the last Uzumaki in existence. One thing you should know is that the Uzumakis were renowned for a variety of things. The one that's most relevant to this topic is the Uzumaki's vitality and regenerative abilities. They recover from wounds far quicker than other people do. However, Naruto is a Jinchuriki, which enhances his recovery far quicker. Combined together, Naruto can heal from almost anything in a much shorter time frame than other people would. Hiruzen explained. As for what happened after the attack yesterday, looking at Naruto, he said, "Show them your blade, Naruto-kun." Naruto nodded and drew Falchion from its sheath. Holding it up, he looked around at everyone for a time before he sheathed it again. Once he had, Hiruzen continued with his explanation. Naruto found the legendary blade, Falchion, within the Forest of Death. It was then that he met Tiki Dono, here. This blade proves that Naruto is the direct descendant of the great hero king, Marth. Only he may wield the blade. Sakura frowned in thought for a moment before saying, "What does that mean for Naruto-kun, exactly? There's something you're not telling us." Hiruzen smirked at her before saying, "Tell me, what have you learned in school about the great hero king?" Sakura looked at the Hokage and said, "It's mostly been myths and legends about Marth, to be honest. I'm not sure how much is truth and how much is fiction. As with most things, I think the legend was distorted somewhat over the years. But, what we did learn is that the Hero King was a wise and fair ruler, and he led an army to defeat a powerful shadow dragon, but we never learned its name. There are legends about his allies, as well as mythical creatures of all kinds. Really, though, we've barely learned anything factual about him." Hiruzen chuckled softly and looked at Tiki. "Would you care to explain?" Tiki smiled as she looked from the Hokage to Sakura. As the direct descendant of Marth, Naruto is meant for great things. Things that this village would refuse him. Whether you believe it or not, Naruto is destined to unite the nations and bring peace and harmony to the world. He is to be the next hero king to rule over the United Nations. Sadly, it will not be an easy journey, and he will face many enemies along the way. And looking at Naruto, she frowned slightly and said, "With the awakening of the mighty Falchion, it is foretold that a great evil will awaken to threaten the world again. I know not what this evil is, nor do I know how powerful it might be. Naruto will need allies, and it's my hope that you might be the first of many, Sakura Haruno." Sakura blinked a moment before asking, "Me? But, I'm really nothing special. I don't have any unique Kekkei Genkai, I don't have a large reserve of chakra, all I really have is book smarts." Naruto shook his head and said, "I think you're plenty special, Sakura-chan. Believe it or not, I need you. Besides, Sakura looked a little confused as she waited for her dear friend to say what was on his mind. When he finally spoke up a moment later, she began to blush. "I love you, Sakura-chan. I always have. I don't want to be without you." The Pinkette's blush darkened considerably. Naruto-kun. Really? Naruto walked up to Sakura and took her hands in his. "Sakura-chan, if you don't feel the same, please just tell me, okay? I'll understand. I just want you to be happy, no matter what." Stammering for a time, Sakura tried to figure out what to say. However, when words failed her, she decided to just act. Grabbing Naruto's shirt, she pulled him closer and pressed her lips to his. When they parted, she wanted to say something, but she realized how good the kiss felt. So, wrapping her arms around him, she began kissing him again. After a while, Naruto and Sakura separated. Looking into her eyes, he said, "You wow. That felt good." Sakura giggled and said, "Naruto-kun, I love you, too. I kind of figured you liked one of the other girls in our class, though." Before Naruto could reply, Hiruzen patted the both of them lightly atop their heads. "That's something we can discuss in the privacy of my office." Looking past them at the gathered crowd, he said, "You are all free to go. I do hope you have learned your lesson by now. I won't tolerate any more abuse towards Naruto and those he cares for." Looking back at Naruto. "You three, follow me. We need to have a talk." After the Hokage left with Naruto, Tiki, and Sakura, most of the crowd dispersed. A few remained rooted in place, however. One such individual was Hinata Hyuga, who watched Naruto until he had disappeared out of sight with the Hokage. "But I love Naruto, too." Another young woman nearby clutched at her chest as tears prickled her eyes. This girl was fairly tall and had dark brown hair and brown eyes. One thing that was most notable about her was her rather sizable breasts with a generous portion of cleavage being shown. A rather large tan scarf was wrapped around her neck and extended down her back almost all the way down to her feet, similar to the one Hiruzen's grandson wore. This girl also had a white ribbon that served as a ponytail holder. Her outfit was brown in coloration as well, and she wore bladed armbands on both of her forearms. Finally, she had an Itachi strapped around the back of her waist for easy access. Anyone that looked at this young woman would tell you that she was quite the stunning beauty. Her name was Kagero, and she came from a long line of talented ninja. Unfortunately, Kagero's brother had a crippling disease that prevented him from continuing on the tradition of enlisting in the ranks of able-bodied ninja. So Kagero decided that she would continue the tradition in his place, while working to prove that Kunoichi could be just as skilled, if not greater, than men. However, as she grew up and spent time at the Ninja Academy, she met and gradually fell in love with Naruto Uzumaki. He was her first real friend, and she truly cherished the bond that they had together. Sadly, it seemed she had waited too long to tell her dear friend about her feelings. I guess that's it, then. I was so stupid to think I had a chance at real happiness with the man of my dreams. Naruto-kun. Similar thoughts were going through the heads of a number of girls who had fallen hard for the young Uzumaki. As they began to go their separate directions, they were all wondering what the future had in store for them, now that Naruto was out of reach. Oh, if only they knew. Hokage's office. Hiruzen smiled as he looked at the happy couple. How do you feel now that you've finally confessed your feelings for one another? Sakura blushed prettily and said, I'm happy. Really happy. But looking from Naruto to the Hokage, the Pinkat shook her head and smiled sadly. I can't keep Naruto-kun all to myself. There are too many other girls, people I'm happy to call my friends, that have romantic feelings for Naruto-kun. Isn't there something we can do to make sure we all get to be happy? Naruto blinked and asked, but wouldn't that be unfair to you, Sakura-chan? Before Sakura could answer, Tiki said, Naruto-kun, Sakura will be your queen. But she is right, you are allowed to have romantic relationships with other girls as well. There is no law saying you can't be happy with multiple women. In fact, isn't there some law in place that takes effect when a clan is close to extinction? Hiruzen nodded and said, yes, there is. It is called the Kra, or Clan Restoration Act. In short terms, it's enacted when someone is the last of their clan, or close to it. You are allowed to take multiple wives and sire children with all of them. However, while you can only have one true queen, you can still be with other women. And I do believe we can all trust you not to abuse such a law for some kind of perverse desire. Isn't that right, Naruto-kun? Naruto blinked and said, that would work to make everybody happy, sure. But Sakura giggled and flicked her new boyfriend on the nose. No buts, mister. I can share you with them. We all love you very, very much. But, I am glad that I'll be your one, true queen. Ruling beside you will be a lot of fun. That's what I'll choose to believe. Naruto smiled at her and held her close. I really do love you, Sakura-chan. You're way too good to me. Giggling a little more, Sakura pecked him lightly on the lips before turning to the Hokage. I know that it's probably a bit too much to ask, but when you're choosing teams, can you pretty please put Naruto-kun and me on the same team? I have no right to ask such a thing, I know, but… Hiruzen chuckled softly and shook his head. I had already planned to assign you to the same team with Yugao Yuzuki as your sensei. I'm just trying to determine who should be the final member of your team. And Tiki Dono, I assume you're thinking what I'm thinking. Tiki giggled demurely and said, I do believe I am. Sakura here would make for a most excellent Pegasus Knight. If I am correct, the Pegasi shall reveal themselves sometime in the coming days. Once they have, I'll take Sakura with me to befriend her chosen Pegasus. I assume you have someone that can teach her the art of the lance. Naruto piped up at this point and said, Tenten and her family could teach Sakura-chan how to use one. She's learned how to use all kinds of weapons thanks to her parents. I'm sure they'd be happy to teach Sakura-chan how to use a lance. Hiruzen nodded in agreement. They are who I would have suggested as well. Sakura Haruno, would you like to learn how to use a new weapon? It is entirely up to you, after all. Sakura nodded with a bright smile on her face and says, that sounds wonderful. I can't wait. Ooh, I'm so excited. Hugging her boyfriend tight, she kissed him again before giggling happily. I know we have to worry about some great evil and all that, but I'm just so happy right now. Naruto chuckled and held his new girlfriend close. I know the feeling. Looking back at Hiruzen, he asked, can we get some breakfast now, please? I haven't eaten anything since yesterday morning and I'm kind of starving. The third chuckled as well. Of course. I'll get Yugao and her boyfriend to assist you with grocery shopping later. I don't expect the villagers to change their opinion of you so quickly, so I'm sure there will still be a number of bigots trying to deny you basic services. Those two can handle any problems that might arise. Thank you, Hokage-sama. That would be most appreciated. Tiki said. I am looking forward to enjoying a hearty meal with these two. I would like to get to know my future queen better. Before they could leave, Sakura looked into the Hokage's eyes and asked, there's a couple of questions I have for you. First, if Iruka and Mizuki have been dealt with, as you explained to me, who will teach our class for the next 2 months? Hiruzen smiled at her and said, good question. For now, I have instructed 2 highly skilled ninja to instruct your class. One is a man named Saizo. The other is a woman by the name of Anko Midarashi. Trust me when I say that those 2 will use these next 2 months to really mold your class into what a proper ninja should be. It will not be an easy 2 months, but they'll be far more worthwhile than what you've experienced these past few years. Sakura smiled brightly and said, I'm looking forward to it, Hokage-sama. My second question is, breathing in and out for a moment, she asked, when should we talk to the other girls about the craw? Hiruzen smirked at her and said, whenever you'd like. You two have classes today, so after breakfast, I'll escort you straight there. You can use some break time in between lessons to discuss the situation with the others, if you are so inclined. Or, if you want to make them sweat a little, you could wait until after graduation. But that would just be cruel now, wouldn't it? Sakura giggled and said, I'm not that mean. We'll try to talk to them today, then. One more question before we go get breakfast. When do we start our training? This afternoon, after school is dismissed for the day. You will likely be exhausted from today's lessons, but if we want to really toughen you two up and prepare you for what's to come, then we're going to need to use these next 2 months to their fullest. I do hope you two can remain strong through it all. Hiruzen said before he began leading them out of the tower and towards the restaurant of his choice. Naruto and Sakura looked into each other's eyes and nodded as one. Together, they looked at the Hokage and said, bring it on. We're ready for it. Chuckling, Hiruzen said, I'm counting on it. Ninja Academy. After eating breakfast together, Naruto and Sakura were both seated in the classroom, holding each other's hands and smiling happily as they talked with one another. Everyone was currently waiting on their senseis to arrive. However, as they talked, they couldn't help but notice the jealous stares being sent Sakura's way. So, just to torment them and Naruto even more, she tugged on Naruto's shirt and planted her lips on his once again, taking his breath away in the process. When they parted moments later, the pin cat licked her lips and whispered into his ear, I'll never get tired of that. Just as I hope you never get tired of me, we'll be just fine. I can't wait for our first date. Naruto was a blushing mess as he nodded and said, that sounds wonderful, Sakura-chan. I'm looking forward to it. Before anyone could say something in response to what they were witnessing, the door opened and in walked a rather provocatively dressed female wearing a tan trench coat, fishnet armor, a skirt, and not much else. Around her neck rested a snake fang pendant and she had her hair done up in a similar style to Shikamaru's. When she took her place at the front of the classroom, the students were all quite confused. Ma'am? Where are Iruka-sensei and Mizuki-sensei? Did something happen to them? Ino questioned. The woman smirked at the young mindwalker before saying, right about now, those two are probably singing soprano and begging a certain torture specialist to stop. You see, those two did some very bad things, so they needed to be replaced. Suo, we're your new instructors. Lucky you. Us? But there's only one of you. Kiba questioned a bit unsurely. Before anyone could say anything in response, Naruto and Sakura both pointed up at the ceiling. Actually, he's been here the entire time. I'm kind of surprised nobody noticed him before now. Naruto said. As one, the class looked up, only to see nobody there. When they went to shout at Naruto, they were suddenly interrupted by a gruff male voice at the front of the classroom. Kudos to you, Uzumaki and Haruno. You were both keenly aware of your surroundings and picked up on my presence since you entered this classroom. As for the rest of you, it would seem you currently lack situational awareness. Well, we're here to fix that. By the end of these next 2 months, you'll either come to hate us or love us for turning you into true ninjas, the kind others should strive to be. This man was dressed in stereotypical ninja garb. Dark colors, mostly black and dark blue. He wore a face mask that covered everything from his nose down. Over his right eye was a long, diagonal scar, which they assumed was an old war wound. Seeing that, it made sense that the man wouldn't, or perhaps even couldn't, open that eye. Like Kagero, he had bladed armbands and numerous shuriken and kunai pouches on his person. All in all, this man looked both utterly terrifying and seriously cool at the same time. Well, alrighty kiddos. I'm Anko Midarashi, sexiest damn kunoichi this side of the globe. This here is my intimidating yet lovable teaching partner. Saizo. How about a big round of applause for Saizo and his nifty ninja tricks, ha kiddies? Saizo groaned and said, you are enjoying this way too much, Midarashi. Meh, what can I say? Gotta live it up while you can. Nuo, I'm sure a lot of you probably have questions for Narutaro over there, but those'll have to wait till later. Right now, we need to determine what you know and what we need to teach you. Pretty sure you weren't learning anything worthwhile from those other two clowns. Suo, what do you say to some hands-on practice, Let's take a little stroll on down to the all-yellow brick road and get this party started. Anko exclaimed joyfully. Staring at Anko with a deadpan stare, Saizo said, that's it. I'm forbidding you from eating dango for a week. Anko gawked at him before growling at him. The hell, Saizo, I'm definitely taking this seriously. I'm just trying to have a little fun at the same time. Might wanna loosen up a bit there, Saizo. Now, let's head on out to the field and see what you lot are capable of, shall we? The students watched a byplay between their two senseis in confusion and slight worry. Leaning over closer to his new girlfriend, Naruto whispered, are we really going to be okay learning under these two? Saizo seems strict as hell and Anko, well, she's an odd one. Sakura giggled quietly as she rose from her seat and took Naruto's hand in hers once again. I don't know. I kinda like it. Now, let's get out there and show everyone what we can really do. Sounds like a plan to me. Naruto said as he walked with Sakura, following their two senseis out of the classroom. Once outside, they were led over to the shuriken jutsu testing and practice area. Turning to look at their students, Saizo narrowed his eye at Naruto and said, I want to see what you're capable of, Uzumaki. Placed before you are 5 standard shuriken and 5 of your garden variety kunai. These are what the standard tests would have you use for the final exams. I have something else in store for the lot of you. For now, these shall do. Step up and take aim at the targets. For this test, they are all stationary. For this particular session, I want you to aim for fatal strikes. We will discuss disabling your opponents and where best to strike another day. So, if you're feeling confident in your abilities, step forward and show me what you can do, Uzumaki. Naruto stepped up to the supplied weapons and glanced into Saizo's eye. Nodding to him, the blonde took hold of the kunai first and took aim. Within a matter of seconds, he hit each of the targets right where their hearts would be. Then, taking the shuriken in hand, he nailed each of the targets in the head, right where their eyes would be. Once he was finished, he turned to Saizo and asked, was that sufficient, Saizo-sensei? Smirking behind his mask, Saizo nodded at Naruto and said, that'll do, Uzumaki. Good job. Anko, choose the next participant. As Naruto returned to his girlfriend's side, Anko smirked at her and said, Haruno, get your butt up here and show us what you can do. Same rules apply. Aim for killing strikes, don't hesitate, and you'll do great. Yay. Sakura waited patiently for all of the kunai and shuriken to be gathered from the targets before she took aim. Her first weapon of choice was the kunai, so one by one, she picked them up and threw them, aiming for the head each time. Her throws were a little off in some cases, such as when one of her kunai penetrated where the neck would be on the target instead of the center of the head. Another one would have just cut into the target's cheek, which definitely counted against her. When she was done with the kunai, the pincat took up the shuriken and threw them, hitting each of the targets right where the heart would be. Breathing a sigh of relief, she turned to Anko and Saizo and asked, how did I do? Anko smirked and said, when we said aim for killing blows, I didn't think you'd nail it right in the jugular. I like that shot the best. Very nice. Though the one where you just grazed the target's cheek does count against you. Still, you did an excellent job. We'll shape you into one fine kunoichi. Thank you, sensei. Sakura said before she hurried over to her boyfriend. After Saizo called up the next student, Sakura tugged on Naruto's arm and said, let's talk to the others while we have the chance. Hopefully Saizo-sensei won't be too strict with us. Naruto chuckled nervously and whispered back, I dunno, Sakura-chan. He seems like a hardcore military type of guy. He might not like us talking during class. Well, he'll just have to deal with it for today. We've got girls we need to talk to. Sakura said, smirking at her love. Soon enough, they stopped next to Hinata, who looked between them nervously. What do you two want? What did I do? Nothing, Hinata. We just wanted to talk with you. Sakura said, smiling kindly at the girl. I know you have a thing for Naruto-kun. And I know you're probably jealous. But, what if I told you that you can still be with Naruto-kun and be happy with us? Could you share Naruto's love with me and the other girls he decides to marry? Hinata blinked in shock a few times before looking straight into Naruto's eyes. You would want to be with me? But, what about? Naruto smiled kindly at Hinata and brought her into a warm embrace. Hinata-chan, I care about you. It's as I told Gramps yesterday. I have multiple girls I like. You're one of them. So, will you be with me? Hinata blushed a deep red color before she glomped Naruto to the ground and nuzzled his neck. Yes, I'll be with you. I really thought I didn't stand a chance. Before they could say any more, Anko called out, Hinata Hyuga. Since you're feeling so energetic, get up here and show us what you can do. Hop to it. Meep. Hinata squeaked before she got off of Naruto, bowed apologetically to him, and hurried off to do as she was told. Once she was gone, Sakura helped Naruto up and together, they giggled for a while. Well, she's certainly happy. Nuo, who should we talk to next, I wonder? Sakura said, taking a thinking pose as she tapped her finger against her chin. Her. Here, she pointed at Kagero, who had been watching them like a hawk. Naruto chuckled quietly to himself as the two of them approached Kagero. Upon reaching her, the kunoichi in training blushed up a storm as she looked into Naruto's eyes. Naruto-kun. Naruto hugged Kagero close to him and whispered to her, Kagero-chan, please don't go away. You need to know that I love you, just as I do Sakura-chan. I could never pick and choose between any of you. I cherish the bond we share and I don't want to lose you. So please, will you consider joining this strange new family we're making together? I know it may not be ideal. Kagero giggled quietly to herself and buried her face against Naruto's chest. You dummy. I love you, Naruto-kun. You're the only one I could ever picture myself with. If you promise that you'll marry me someday, then I'd be glad to join you. Of course, sweetheart. I will. I love you, Kagero. Naruto said before they separated. The brunette smiled happily at him and said, love you too, Naru-kun. A moment later, Kagero was called up to take the test. But, before they could go in search of the other girls in the class that liked him, Saizo leveled a fierce glare at them and pointed down at the ground. Needless to say, they quickly got the message and sat down where they were towards the back of the class. He's a little scary, isn't he? Naruto asked Sakura. Very. I think we're in for a long 2 months. But, I wouldn't have it any other way. Sakura admitted. Agreed. I'm really looking forward to whatever comes next. With you at my side, I'm going to take this world by storm and make sure we can all be happy together. Nothing's going to stop me. Naruto said, clenching his fist tight. And I'll be right there with you. We all will be. Sakura said as she rested her head on his shoulder. I will become strong enough to stand beside you as your queen. That's a promise. Alright, enough. Saizo shouted, clearly disappointed in the match he had just borne witness to. You girls should be ashamed of yourselves. Tell me, why did you sign up for the Ninja Academy? If you say it was simply to get in the Uchiha's good graces or to win him over, you'll regret it. The duo of girls were obviously fangirls, based on the match they just had. They had resorted to slapping, hair-pulling, name-calling, and other such pitiful displays. There was no true form of taijutsu involved. And now, looking into Saizo's eye, they shriveled under his gaze and remained silent. Enko scoffed at this and said, fangirls. You only joined to be closer to Sasuke. If you choose to remain in the academy, will you take your training, and more importantly, yourselves seriously? Sasuke is no longer in the academy, and therefore your original reason for being here is gone. Turning, she looked out at the class and said, this goes for the rest of you as well. Find a reason to stay in the academy and stick to your goals and virtues. The person you should be most afraid of letting down is yourself. Be proud of who you are and prove yourselves in this class. At hearing this, a number of girls in the class frowned to themselves and thought. They knew that their reason for entering the academy was simply for Sasuke's sake. They knew it was stupid and they should be ashamed of themselves for doing such a stupid thing, but at the same time, I want to be a respectable kunoichi. I don't want to remain some weak, stupid girl. One of the girls said, staring right into Saizo's eye. I know what we just showed you is stupid and pathetic, but I'll get better. I promise I will. Saizo stared hard into the girl's eyes before nodding his head. So you will. I want each of you to find the resolve in yourself to become someone great. Now, rejoin your classmates. Uzumaki. Inuzuka. Get into the ring. Naruto chanced to glance at his classmate, one Kiba Inuzuka. He knew that Kiba was one of the most skilled taijutsu practitioners in the class, and if he was permitted to bring Akamaru into the spar, he knew he was screwed. Naruto also knew that his own skills were negligible at best, considering he had never been taught correctly, if at all. Sure, Shuriken Jutsu was easy enough to master on his own, but taijutsu? I'm screwed. I'm just going to be the laughingstock again. As Naruto entered the ring, a girl that usually kept to herself watched him from the back of the class. Sure, she had friends, but she was a bit reserved and tended to keep to herself more often than not. She had long, blonde hair and jade green eyes. This young woman also carried a lance, though it was laid on the ground beside her at the moment. She wasn't overly muscular, but she definitely looked well trained and had a look about her that told people she could and would kick their ass if need be. Oh, she knew the lance was an unusual weapon for any ninja, but it was the weapon she was most comfortable with. The girl watched as Naruto began his spar with Kiba. Kiba had always been a jerk to Naruto, and oftentimes, she could see how much Kiba's taunts would affect him. To think that all this time, I'd been hoping to meet my beloved in this lifetime only for Naruto to be the one. I had truly believed Marth had been reborn in this timeline as well, but I was wrong. Reincarnated into this boy. A village pariah, insulted and hurt by many of the people. Oh, Marth, I should have been more proactive in my search for you. Naruto Uzumaki sighing softly to herself, the girl, whose name was Kita, muttered, damn. As Naruto took blow after blow from the arrogant jerk known as Kiba, Kita watched Naruto closely. After a moment, she shouted, come on, Naruto. Beat this jerk and show everyone just how skilled you really are. When all eyes turned on her, Kita looked right on back and asked, what? When they muttered nothing in response, the blonde returned her gaze to the spar and thought silently to herself, all this time, waiting for my beloved. I wanted to be by his side and be his queen again. But Naruto. That is not at all what I was expecting. I know it's selfish of me, but I want to be by your side again, Marth. If that means I have to be with Naruto, then so be it. But I lost my chance to be your queen again. I know it's wrong of me to feel this way, but you mean so much to me, my beloved. Naruto frowned to himself as he did his best to deflect and avoid Kiba's wild attacks. Kita. She's never so much as said a word to me before. I didn't think she even knew my name. Why is she suddenly cheering for me now? Is she only noticing me now because of what Gramps told everyone? If that's her reason for talking to me now, then I'll have to be careful with her. I don't want some kind of gold digger or something. Kiba took advantage of Naruto's distracted state to slam a fist into the blonde's chest, sending him skidding backwards and almost out of the ring. When Naruto bent over, coughing and struggling to breathe, the arrogant teen smirked at him and decided to mock his opponent. What's wrong, Naruto? Is this too much for you? To think you're supposed to be some legendary king? You're pathetic. Hell, you might as well just give the sword to me. I'll show you what a real king is like. And, while I'm at it, I might as well take those girls you're so fond of, too. Naruto narrowed his eyes at his opponent and said, I don't care what my destiny is. If I'm meant to lead, then I'll do it and lead by example. I'll be a kind and just ruler. I won't ever let my people down. But I'm not going to let it go to my head. And I know that, right now, my skills are, well, not good. Sighing softly, Naruto glanced at Kita again, meeting her eyes for just a moment. When an image flashed in his mind, he was stunned for a moment before quickly shaking his head. Returning his gaze to Kiba, he said, with guidance, I know I'll get better. I'll become somebody people can be proud of. As for the girls. I really have no idea what to say on that subject. Honestly. I never quite expected any girls to really fall for me, but it happened. They make me happy, and I hope to do the same for them. Kiba, you don't like me, and that's fine. But please don't say such things about the girls that care for me. And don't go boasting about how you'd make a better king than me. Hell, if somebody better comes along who feels they can truly bring peace to the world, I might be willing to work with them. But, if they're arrogant and prove themselves to be an unworthy ruler, I will do something about it. Besides, Kiba, I have plenty of time to grow and acclimate to my new role. We're still young and nobody ever said I have to rule right this moment. I'm sure that even Marth wasn't prepared to rule right from the start. I still have a lot of growing left to do before I will allow myself to claim the role of Hero King and work towards uniting the nations of the world. Frowning, Naruto looked into Kiba's eyes and said, Kiba, even if I wanted to give you my sword and make you the new ruler in my place, Falchion chose me. I cannot give it to you, and I wouldn't even were it possible. Besides, you would make for a rather poor ruler, Kiba Inuzuka. And, before you go getting any ideas, I would recommend not touching my sword. You won't like what happens to you. Kiba scoffed and asked, what? Afraid that the sword would choose me, instead. Afraid that it would recognize a true leader of the pack and not some half-wit like you. Shaking his head in disbelief, he held out his hand and said, give Falchion to me and walk away. You're unfit to rule over anyone, least of all me. Saizo frowned and shook his head in exasperation. Just get on with the spar. We don't have all day. And Inuzuka. Seeing he had the boy's attention, Saizo said, you do not want to touch that sword. As you were warned, you will not like what happens to you should you touch Falchion. Frowning in confusion, Kiba soon shook it off and turned back to Naruto. Fine then. If you all want to kiss this loser's ass and treat him like he's already king, then I'll just have to thrash him and show you all what a real king is like. As Kiba charged at him again, Naruto took a breath to steady himself before he slipped behind his opponent and slammed his clenched fist into the back of the Inuzuka's head. However, Kiba managed to stop himself before he could fall out of the ring and lose by default. Snarling, Kiba swung his arm as he turned, almost nailing Naruto in the side of his head. When the blonde hopped backwards to put some space between them, Kiba smirked and zipped towards him, landing 2 quick blows to Naruto's chest and stomach. As Naruto reeled from the attacks, Kiba continuously landed attack after attack on his foe until Naruto crumpled to the ground at his feet. Taking a few deep breaths to settle his nerves, Kiba smirked and threw his arms out wide, shouting, ha. Would you look at that, once a loser, always a loser. You just aren't meant to be king, you pathetic sack of crap. I won again, just like I always do. Now grovel at my feet and call me Kiba-sama. Funking do it. Seeing this, Kita sighed and thought, this is your reincarnation, Marth. This is the boy who's supposed to lead us to an era of peace. He is nothing like you. I was hoping for more from your reincarnation, my dear, but this. Sighing again, the buxom beauty looked into her fellow blonde's eyes and blinked a couple of times. Naruto was staring right at her, looking her dead in the eyes. Marth. Naruto looked away from Kita after a moment, his mind reeling the more he looked at her. Her hair color and her eyes were different from the past, but he recognized her from his memories of the time long, long ago. However, he wanted to talk to Tiki about it first, before he even tried talking to his fellow blonde. If Tiki recognized her as well, then he'd approach Kita and try talking to her. For now, he wanted to put Kiba in his place. Sadly, Kiba was holding him down with one of his feet. Damn it. Why am I such a loser? It hurts. I don't damn it. Kiba smirked viciously down at his beaten foe. Getting off of him, Kiba knelt down and grabbed Naruto by the hair. Forcing him to look at Kita, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, look at her. You let her down, you loser. She can't even bear to look you in the eyes anymore, knowing just how much you suck. You have no skills at anything. Face it, loser, you just aren't cut out to be a ninja. Hell, you aren't even meant to let anybody. Knowing you, you'll just get your team killed on your first mission outside of the village. If you know what's good for you, you'll drop out right now. Go on and say it. Tell everyone that you just couldn't cut it. Tell everyone that you're sorry for being such a pathetic piece of trash. Only then will I let you go. Now do it, Naruto. Admit what a loser you are and leave. Naruto focused his gaze on Kita and found that Kiba was right. She couldn't even look his way anymore. He wasn't sure why that hurt him so much, considering they had never interacted during all their time in the academy, but it hurt bad. Tears began to trickle down his cheeks, and he lowered his gaze. I'm pathetic. He muttered quietly, not expecting anyone to hear him. Kiba's smirk widened and he said, I heard that. But they didn't. Say it louder, Naruto. Let everyone hear what you just said. Naruto gritted his teeth and glared at Kiba hatefully. When all he received was a harsh punch to the face, the blonde spit out some blood and snarled out, I said I'm pathetic. Okay, you asshole, I don't have what it takes to beat you in a spar. I suck, damn it. I could make excuses, but I won't. It's true that I wasn't taught a proper taijutsu form. I never got the chance to learn or improve myself. But, in the end, I'm too pathetic. I can't beat you. Are you happy now, you funking asshole? Enough. Saizo shouted, glaring hard at the both of them. Inuzuka. Just because you defeated your opponent, it does not give you the right to belittle them. To humiliate them. We will be having words with your mother over your behavior here today. Uzumaki. Get up and stop crying. You lost this time, but you have plenty of time and room to improve yourself. The next time I pit you two against each other, I expect a much better showing from you, Uzumaki. Now, return to your places so I can call up the next two students. Anko frowned deeply as she looked at her fellow teacher. Deciding to wait on speaking to him for a moment, she turned to look at the remaining students and said, do not mock Naruto. If you know what's good for you, you'll shut your traps and let things be. Haruno. Yamanaka. Enter the ring and get ready. Turning back to Saizo, she glared at him and said, you should have stepped in to stop the spar before things could escalate that far. So why the hell didn't you? Saizo looked at Anko out of the corner of his eye and said, we are here to train them, Mitarashi. We are not here to coddle them. If they can't handle themselves, then they'll never survive out there in the world beyond Konoha's borders. Besides, I wanted to test his resolve, and Uzumaki crumbled under the pressure. If he is truly meant to lead us, I don't see it. He has potential, but it has been squandered. I hope that he learns his lesson from this spar and strives to better himself. As it is, he has some skill in some areas, but the rest is not impressive to me. If he can't handle some harsh words and a little humiliation, then, I'm sorry to say this, he will make for a poor king. The snake mistress's jaw dropped as she stared at Saizo in disbelief. After a moment though, she clenched her teeth and fists in anger, but rather than lash out at him, she looked back at Naruto, only to see he had isolated himself and currently had his head buried in his knees. Frowning sadly to herself, she decided that she would check on him later. Turning back to the duo she had called up for their spar, she took a deep breath to calm herself and said, remember that this is taijutsu only. Now begin. As his future queen and her best friend began their spar, Naruto quietly sobbed to himself. He couldn't even bring himself to look at the other faces in his class. He couldn't bear to see their disappointment in him. Naruto felt like a complete failure and currently just wanted to crawl in a hole and die there. I really am pathetic. I'm nothing like you, Marth. I don't care if I'm your reincarnation or your descendant or whatever the hell else I could be. I'll never be like you. I don't have the same potential you did. I'm just a pathetic nobody. Falchion made a mistake. I'm not worthy of this sword. Then there's her glancing at Kita, he frowned and thought, that's definitely Kita. Different hair color and different eyes, but she's definitely your queen, reborn in this timeline. She definitely remembers everything, based on how she was looking at me earlier. I'm sorry I let you both down. Maybe I really should just drop out and go home. Meanwhile, Kita chanced to glance at Naruto and shook her head in disappointment. Marth, your reincarnation just doesn't have what it takes to be like you. You would never have belittled yourself like he just did. You never allowed yourself to cry in front of your subjects. You were always so calm and confident in yourself and your abilities. This boy. Watching Naruto for a while longer, she thought, I would not be at all surprised if he gives up the sword and wallows in self-misery. I hate to say it, my beloved, but Naruto just doesn't have what it takes. He is unworthy of your blade. Sakura is the winner. Anko's voice suddenly declared, breaking them free of their negative thoughts. Clear the ring. Then I want Ami and Hinata to get their butts up here. The Pincat didn't say anything as she walked past everyone and sat down beside her future king and husband. Placing a hand gently upon his hand, she said, Naruto-kun. Look at me. At first, Sakura was worried that he wasn't going to look at her. He remained still for a good while, and she was about to speak again when Naruto lifted his head up and gazed into her eyes. Smiling kindly at him and gave his hand a squeeze to show her support. Naruto-kun, it's not your fault. You're not pathetic and you're not a loser. Your education has been sabotaged to an alarming degree and you never really learned any kind of form or technique in Taijutsu. And sure, you can't perform the clone technique, but there are ways around that. Haruka and Mizuki had no intention of treating you fairly or giving you the proper guidance that you need. Saizo and Anko will show you the right way to do things. They will treat you fairly. And they will ensure that you become the kind of person, the kind of king, that you were always meant to be. Falchion chose you for a reason. Don't think otherwise. Don't doubt yourself. And please, don't you ever call yourself pathetic ever again. Okay, sweetheart. Naruto wiped the tears out of his eyes with the backs of his fingers and offered his girlfriend the tiniest of smiles. Okay. Thank you, Sakura-chan. I'll try to be better from now on. I don't want to let you down again. I don't want to let anyone see me being that weak again. I didn't think he'd go that far. It was cruel and uncalled for. I just wish I could have put him in his place. I hate this feeling. Sakura hugged him close and let him nestle his face into the crook of her neck. You're right. It was cruel and unfair of him to do that to you. He went out of his way to hurt you in the worst way he could have. I don't think he regrets it either. We should talk to Tiki about what happened and see what she wants to do about this. If she was here, I doubt she would have ever allowed something like that to happen to you. If she wasn't busy, I know she would have been here for you. Naruto nodded and watched as Hinata struck Ami down again in the ring. The purple-haired girl just refused to stay down, adamant in the fact that she was Hinata's better. He didn't care any, so he turned back to Sakura and said, it's a shame Gramps needed her today. I wish she was here. Sighing sadly, he looked back into his future queen's eyes and said, if I tell you something, will you keep an open mind and hear me out? The Pincat quirked a brow in curiosity. Of course. What's on your mind? Motioning towards Kita, who wouldn't even look at him anymore, Naruto began to explain to Sakura what was on his mind. Kita. She's never talked to anyone and has seemed closed off, in a sense, all this time. She was Marth's wife, his queen. Unlike me, who is only a descendant of Marth, she is Kita reborn into our timeline. Of course, she doesn't have the same eye and hair color as she did back then, but it is definitely her. The mere fact that I let her down so horribly bugs me. I hate myself for doing it, but… Sakura scowled at this and looked at Kita with an angry glint in her eyes. I see. That would explain it then. She expects far too much from you. She's comparing you to Marth, and you are most assuredly not Marth. You are your own person with your own insecurities and beliefs. If she can't accept that and work with you, then she's an idiot. Looking back into Naruto's eyes, she said, you shouldn't feel bad, Naruto-kun. You'll become stronger, faster, smarter, and even more than that. You have your own natural charisma that will draw people to you. They will be your friends, your trusted confidants, your soldiers. I believe you have the potential to surpass Marth. She's just stuck in the past, refusing to look to the future. If she won't support you, then that's on her. I'm your queen, Naruto-kun. Not her. And you haven't let me down. I still believe in you just as much as I always have, if not more so. I love you. She doesn't. So forget about her and do what you can to be happy with those that cherish you. Okay? Naruto looked past his chosen queen, staring at Kita for a moment longer. After a moment, he looked into Sakura's eyes and offered her a sincere smile. Thanks, Sakura-chan. You have no idea how much it means to me to hear you say that. If she can't accept me for who I am, that's on her. Still, I think Tiki would like to talk with her. Though, I doubt Tiki will be so nice and accepting once she learns about Kita's attitude and behavior. I almost feel bad about it and about the trouble I'll be causing for her, but Kita definitely needs to pull her head out of her ass if she can't see that I'm not Marth. Heh, to think I told Tiki last night that I'm not Marth and here I am, disappointed that I couldn't live up to Kita's expectations. I feel so stupid. Sakura giggled, but before she could say anything in response, Hinata was finally declared the winner of her spar with Ami. Blinking, she turned to look and saw that Ami was lying in a crumpled heap on the ground. She looked as if she had just been run over by a carriage or something. When Hinata joined them, she asked, what the heck did Ami do? Hinata huffed before sitting down on Naruto's other side. She started making fun of Naruto-kun. Taunting me that my love was worthless trash. So I decided to make her pay for it. Sakura giggled and said, I should have guessed. Ami's always been a bitch. I'm amazed she's even choosing to stay in the academy with Sasuke no longer here. He was her whole reason for joining the academy in the first place, after all. Hinata shrugged and said, either she finds a new reason to stay or she drops out. If she stays, she'd better watch her mouth. I won't hesitate to destroy her should she insult Naruto-kun again. Naruto smiled and took Hinata's hand in his. Thank you, Hinata-chan. That means a lot to me. I really do love you girls. Hinata smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. We love you, too. And we also know that you'll crush Kiba someday for what he did to you here. It might not happen right away, but you're going to get stronger and better. You will beat him someday soon though, I'm sure of it. Just, don't go stooping to his level, okay? Naruto chuckled softly and said, wouldn't dream of it, Hinata-chan. Now, it looks like it's Kagero-chan's turn. Looks like she's up against Kita. I almost feel sorry for her. Sakura smirked at her beloved and asked, which one? Kagero or Kita? Naruto smirked at his queen and said, Kita. I doubt Kagero-chan's happy with Kita right now. I doubt it'll be an easy fight, but I truly believe Kagero can put Kita in her place. Might even help her see the fact that I am not Marth. Kita shouldn't expect so much from me. Sakura and Hinata giggled at this and nodded their heads. They were all eager to watch this match. Kagero stared coldly at her opponent. Just as Hinata and Sakura no doubt did, she saw the way Kita looked at their beloved. They also saw her look away, almost as if she was ashamed of Naruto for his poor display. She knew that something was different about Kita as compared to the others in their class. Still, no matter what her differences were, Kagero was not pleased with the bitch right now. It was almost as if eyes widening in realization, she soon narrowed them into a glare and said, You knew Marth, didn't you? Kita's eyes widened slightly before her gaze softened. Nodding once, she said, I have all my memories from back then, yes. I never expected for Marth's soul to have transmigrated into the likes of Naruto Uzumaki. Shut up. Kagero commanded. When Kita's jaw dropped and she began to stutter, the buxom ninja in training said, You seem to be mistaken. Nobody ever said Naruto-kun was Marth's reincarnation. He is a descendant of Marth's. Naruto-kun will never be Marth. It's unfair to thrust your expectations and desires onto him. Naruto is his own person and I love him for who he is. I'm pissed at what Kiba did, but I won't hold it against Naruto. I saw the look on your face when Naruto said what he did. You were ashamed of him. You are comparing him to Marth and that's not fair at all. What exactly were you expecting? You know that Naruto was ridiculed, insulted, and never received the proper training the rest of us were granted. Iruka and Mizuki were horrible to him. So how dare you? Without looking at Saizo and Anko, Kagero said, Start the match. I want to make this bitch hurt. Anko glanced between them before a wicked smirk stretched her lips. Begin. This should be good. As they stared into each other's eyes, waiting for just the right moment to make a move, Kita decided to speak up. It doesn't matter if Naruto is Marth reincarnated or if he's simply a descendant. Naruto let Marth down. He let me down. But most of all, he let himself down. Nobody should ever give in to a bully like that. Nobody should call themselves pathetic. I wanted to see Naruto's resolve and I was left disappointed. I cannot be with someone so weak of will. And, whether you want to believe it or not, the fact is that Naruto is Marth reincarnated. Kagero scowled and said, You don't really care about Naruto. Not as a person, anyways. You just wanted to be with Marth again and decided to project your feelings onto Naruto. To you, nobody could ever measure up to Marth. Such unreasonable expectations to force onto somebody. Shaking her head, the brunette dashed in close to Kita and threw a punch, only for Kita to block it. Smirking at the blonde, she said, And you're mine. Kita looked confused for a moment as she pondered over what her opponent meant. She soon found out when her legs were swept out from under her and she was pinned to the ground, a fierce grip on her neck. Narrowing her eyes, Kita landed a quick jab to Kagero's stomach before performing a flip kick, sending the female ninja in training reeling backwards a few steps. Once she was back on her feet, the blonde moved in quickly, throwing a series of punches and kicks at Kagero. The problem was, Kagero was deflecting and redirecting her attacks while throwing her own right on back at Kita. It would seem we're evenly matched. She said, frowning as she landed a quick palm thrust against Kagero's left breast. That's where you're wrong, Kita. Kagero said before she moved faster than the blonde was expecting. Within mere moments, Kita was thrown out of the ring by a powerful punch to her face. Stalking over to her downed opponent, Kagero knelt down next to her and said, I expect you to apologize to Naruto-kun later, once you've cooled your head. Whatever you might have been expecting from him, I expect you to swallow your pride and acknowledge him for the person he is. Naruto-kun is a wonderful person, just as he is. You're the one who is unworthy of him. You'll be lucky if we allow you anywhere near him after today. And with that, Kagero left the ring and walked over to Naruto. Kneeling before him, she wrapped her arms around him and kissed him tenderly on the lips. "Are you okay, Naruto?" Naruto offered her a sincere smile and wrapped his arms around her, hugging her close against him. "I am now. Thank you so much, Kagero-chan. What you just did, it means so much to me. Do you really not care if I am not like Marth?" Kagero flicked him in the forehead, giggling a bit when he let out a quiet yelp. "Of course I don't care. I didn't fall in love with Marth. I fell in love with you. Kita may be obsessed with her old flame, but the rest of us don't care about your ancestor. You are you, Naruto-kun. That's all there is to it." "Thank you," Naruto said, hugging her closer. Before they could say any more, Saizo's voice could be heard. "That's enough. We've seen more than enough to gauge your current skill levels. Some of you are more skilled than others, but that's to be expected. However, I was not impressed by any of you. Inuzuka." Seeing he had Kiba's attention, the hardened ninja said, "Mitarashi and I will be addressing your behavior today with Hokage-sama and your mother. You may have proven your skill, but your arrogance and your bullying end today. We will not stand for such unseemly behavior from a ninja of Konohagakure. You can rest assured that we will beat such an attitude straight out of your system. I also expect a formal apology to Uzumaki to be addressed at your leisure. Just so long as you apologize to him within the week, we won't have any problems. Refuse to do as you have been instructed and there will be hell to pay." Kiba's eyes widened and he shouted, "Please don't. I didn't mean anything by it. Honest. Just please don't say anything to them." Enko smirked evilly at him and said, "Should have thought of that before you humiliated your opponent. Besides, it's either we have a chat with those two or you can spend time in T&I with my pal Ibiki. Trust me when I say you do not want that. So take your punishment like a man." Kiba looked devastated. Grumbling to himself, he glanced at Naruto and thought, "Damn you, Uzumaki. I'll make you pay for this." Ignoring the petulant teenager, Saizo looked at the class and said, "We have seen enough by now to gauge your potential. Some of you would be smart to quit now. The rest of you, I see potential to be great." Looking straight into Naruto's eyes, he said, "I see potential in you, Uzumaki. You have what it takes to be a splendid shinobi, but only if you work for it first. You may have been held back for years because of those fools, but for the 2 months we have you, we're going to beat knowledge and skill into you. You will sweat. You will no doubt cry. You will be angry. You may even come to hate me. However, I'll do whatever it takes to mold you into the kind of king you're supposedly meant to be. I don't believe in such speculations or wild imaginings, but if ruling the United Nations is your goal, I'll ensure you can succeed. That is my promise to you. So do not let what happened here today harm your resolve in any way. You have time to improve. Do not doubt yourself again." Looking around at the rest of the class, Saizo continued. "From this point forth, you show respect for all of your opponents. Whether they are an enemy or you're simply sparring with a colleague, you will respect all those you face. Whether you like it or not, your foes are fighting for their village's honor and the people they cherish. I am of the belief that there is no true good or evil in this world. Hell, even missing men have their pride and honor. You may come across people you will come to truly despise, and you may consider them evil, but it is all a matter of perspective. But enough waxing philosophical for the time being. You will fight for what you feel is the right cause. You will fight for your friends and family. You will fight to represent your village and make people proud of you and your accomplishments. And we will be proud to say that we had a hand in training such skilled younglings such as yourselves. Now, normally your teachers would take you inside for a history lecture or some other nonsense. However, I believe we have seen enough for today. We will resume with lectures tomorrow, and your training will begin in earnest." Looking at Naruto this time, he said, "You will be the busiest of all. You will barely have any time to rest. You have a lot of training ahead of you if you want to prove worthy of your destiny." "Pa. I hate the mere concept of that word, but I have to acknowledge what I've seen. Your guardian and Miss Yuzuki will be waiting for you out front. Feel free to take your queen and girlfriends with you. If they're to stand at your side, they could benefit from such training as well." Then, he looked at Kita, who was nursing the bruise on her face. "You will speak with a woman known as Tiki. I am sure she will have some choice words for you." Kita's eyes widened in recognition of the name. After a brief moment to think over what she had done and said, she lowered her gaze and nodded once in solemn resignation. "Of course, Saizo-sensei. Good. Now, you are all dismissed. Inuzuka, you will come with us. Do not try to resist," Saizo said before grabbing Kiba by his shoulder. Together with Enko, he vanished with Kiba in tow. Naruto smiled at his girlfriends before standing up with them. "Come on, girls. Yuga-sensei and Tiki are probably waiting for us. I think they'll be more than happy to help train you girls, too." Kagero smiled in thanks before the 4 of them stood up and began making their way towards the front of the school. As they walked, she and Hinata grabbed a hand each and intertwined their fingers with Naruto's. Sadly, their time was interrupted when Kita decided to join them. Glaring at her, the brunette asked, "What do you want?" Kita frowned and said, "Nothing to do with Naruto, I assure you. I merely wish to speak with Tiki-sama and ascertain the truth. Depending on what she tells me, I may apologize to your boyfriend." Sakura glared at the blonde and asked, "You have no intention of apologizing to him otherwise, do you?" When Kita didn't say anything in response, the pincat clenched her fists tight and wished that she could just slug the bitch right out of Kita. Taking a deep breath to calm herself, she resumed walking with her love and fellow Naru lovers. She's so obsessed with Marth, it's almost scary. When they reached the front of the school, Kita's eyes widened and she quickened her pace. Once she was standing before Tiki, the blonde looked searchingly into her eyes. After some time, she said, "It really is you, Tiki. If you're here, then." Tiki looked coldly into Kita's eyes and said, "We saw everything, Kita. I was not aware that you had been reborn. Well, it is good to see you again, you are being ridiculous. Naruto is not Marth. It's as they told you, Naruto is his descendant and is his own person. I see potential within him to be like Marth and perhaps even surpass him. However, I shall never place any kind of expectations upon him. I want Naruto to grow into his own person and succeed in life on his own merits. You, however, expect more from him than is reasonable." Tiki took a moment to watch Kita's reaction to what she had just been told. When she began to look confused and even a little hurt, the mannequin frowned sadly and said, "Marth would be ashamed of you, Kita. He would have wanted you to move on with your life. Instead, you are buckled down by your past. You refuse to move forward in the vain hope that Marth will be reborn or reincarnated in this life. He would want you to be happy. So why punish yourself like this? Have you truly lost your way in life without your husband by your side?" Kita couldn't find it in herself to look her old friend in the eyes. "Because I failed him in his final moments. You know what happened to him in the end. Betrayed by one of his own and I just stood by and watched it happen. I wasn't there for him when he needed me. I've been desperate to see him again so I could repent for my sins and make him happy once more. I want my Marth back. I know he's out there somewhere. But you're telling me that Naruto isn't his reincarnation. Then where is Marth? The real Marth?" Vicky shook her head and said, "Marth's soul has moved on. He will never be reborn. Nor will he be reincarnated. Marth is forever gone from this world. He gave his heart and soul to this world and has earned himself a peaceful rest. I recommend moving on and trying to find happiness in your new life, Kita. Just do not harm Naruto-kun again. You may not have dealt a physical blow to him, but his emotional state is still fragile. Your disappointment in him hurt worse than any weapon could have." The blonde felt tears welling up in her eyes. After a moment, she let the tears flow and said, "Marth. My Marth gone." Then looking into Tiki's eyes, she asked, "Why am I even here? Why was I reborn? I don't understand." Before Tiki could reply, Naruto stepped up to them and said, "It was simply your time. If you truly feel like you have to repent for some crime you think you committed in the past, then you can do so in this timeline. You need to forgive yourself and let the past go. I don't know what your purpose is in this time period, but you have people that would be more than willing to help you if only you'd let them in. Heck, I'd try to help you, but I'm not exactly pleased with how you've treated me so far. Besides, I'm not the guy you were hoping I was. Disappointing, I know, but it's the truth." Sighing softly, he looked into her green eyes and said, "I hope you find happiness in this lifetime. I would love to count you among my allies when it's time to unite the nations and bring about peace, but well, you've made it pretty clear that you don't really want anything to do with me." Yugao frowned as she watched them. After some time and silence, she shook her head and said, "Naruto. Come with me. It's time that we begin your training. You girls are welcome to come along as well, if you'd like. Perhaps I could even teach you a thing or two." As the purple-haired woman turned and began to walk, Naruto and the others fell into step behind her. Tiki and Kita had stayed behind, however. Once the others were gone, Tiki said, "Kita, stop your crying. You have a great destiny before you, if only you'll find your resolve. Support Naruto in his endeavors. Help him become the king this world needs. Then, somewhere along the way, you might find yourself falling in love with someone new. I know you miss Marth. I do as well. But I have vowed to serve Naruto as his advisor. I will help him create the peace we've envisioned. Take some time to think on it. Now, I must be on my way. Be well, Kita." The blonde watched as Tiki walked off to rejoin Naruto and the others. Left on her own, Kita continued to let the tears flow. "I never wanted to live in a world without you, Marth. All this time, waiting to see you again, it was all pointless. I miss you so much. What do I do now? Would you want me to guide your descendant? I wish there was some kind of sign to tell me what I should do. I'm so sorry. I was such a coward. Could you ever forgive me for letting you down? Could you forgive me for insulting you, descendant? I wish I knew what to do." Slowly, she took a step in the direction Naruto and the others had gone. Sadly, as much as she thought over her current quandary, Kita could not find any answers. Her thoughts would haunt her for some time to come. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys, let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video, bye bye.